Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Penfield Zoning Board of Appeals. Tonight's meeting is going to take place in two parts. The first part will be our public hearings. We'll ask the applicant to come up to the podium and give us name and address for the record, and then explain to the board why the relief being requested should be granted. Once the applicant is done with the presentation, board members will likely have questions, and then we'll invite anyone in the audience that cares to speak about an application to come up, give name and address as well, and then speak his or her mind about the application. Sometimes the board has questions of people to come up and testify about the application as well. Once the public hearings are adjourned, we'll take a brief recess and we'll reconvene in the back of the room in order to deliberate on tonight's applications and to tend to any unfinished business the board may have. Members of the public are certainly welcome at both the public hearings and the deliberations, although those are generally time reserved for conversation amongst board members with staff, and with council as needed. We only have two applications tonight, but obviously one is generating a lot of interest, which is fine. But for folks that are here on the first application, you're welcome to stay, as I just said, but it may be a while, so if you would rather leave, you can do that. Just give a call tomorrow, and you can find out what action the board took on the application. Every month I point out that the town's practice and policy of notifying neighbors that live in the area of applications that the applications are going to be heard by this board. And the town does that by sending postcards, by requiring the applicant to put a sign out, by using the internet, and posting it, as I always say, the old-fashioned way on bulletin boards in the town hall. Why does the town do that? The town does that to make sure that town residents are fully informed of their right to come in and speak about applications. And I think I can speak for all the board members and staff and say that that works pretty well, because applications that have an impact, we often have people here in the audience. Other ones, more mundane, frankly, we usually have the applicant and perhaps no one else, and that's okay. But we like it when people come in and speak their mind, because that helps us do our jobs as well. So we welcome that. And having said that, I'd ask everyone to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Harold, if we can have the first application, please.
Application number 1, Yoseph Thompson, 1036 Penfield Road, Rochester, New York, 14625, requests an area variance from Article 3-3-37-A of the Code to allow a two-story addition with less setback than permitted at 1036 Penfield Road. The property is owned by Yoseph and Michele Thompson and is zone R-1-20. This is SBL number 123.19-1-10. This is application number 13Z-0043. Come on up.
We actually have a revised set of drawings with different, more windows added to it for better appeal.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And you guys, could you give your names and addresses and what you do?
Thank you. My name is Michele Thompson. I live at 1036 Penfield Road.
I'm Neil Harder, Land Tech Professional Services. I'm the contractor.
I'm coming before the board today for a variance, and we're looking to put a second addition, or a second-story garage on to what we have now. And the reason we're doing this is because primarily we have no storage in the home. We have a split level, and all of our space in our home is living space. We have 5 people living in the home, and we have 1 bathroom to share. And right now, everybody at 8 o'clock in the morning is 7 o'clock in the morning, trying to use the bathroom. It's just been a big hardship. Downstairs in the lower level, we have all of our storage, all over. It's very unorganized. We're looking to have a place where we can put our storage and be able to have a space open up, and then eventually, hopefully within the next year, have that other bathroom built. So this is why, the biggest reason we're going for this. Before you have the drawings, and we have changed it because we didn't like the way the first set of drawings came back from the architect. It didn't look appealing. We want to make sure that the property looks like it's never been changed, like it belongs and it was always there. We want to make sure it blends with the neighborhood and make sure it's all copacetic. So we did add, if you'll see the revised version, we put 3 windows on the front and on the west side elevation. I think he said. On the west side elevation, we added the windows here as well. And then on the back, we added the 2 windows. And again, the reason we did that because it was looking.
Shift that over a little.
Oh, just pull the whole board
Yeah, the
down.
board.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, it's fine.
So again, we did that, to make it not look so much like a barn. When we got the drawings back from the architect, we didn't like the way that it looked, and we wanted to make like I said, make it look like the rest of the home, and that it's always been there. I'm trying to think what else. I did go around to my neighbors, to the different neighbors' homes that I knew that were directly in my vicinity around the circumference of the home. And I did type up a letter in acknowledgement and acceptance of the new addition. I did show them the architectural drawings and have discussions. And I made it to 3 of the 4 that I went to. One of them wasn't home. They are here this evening, but one of them wasn't home when I went there. But I do have the other 3, and they've already looked at it and saw that it, they were okay with it.
Okay, it says a garage addition on the first level.
Yeah.
Is there going to be any division between the existing garage and the new portion?
You're saying like
Is
a
it going to be
wall?
one open space
It's going to be
from
one.
front to back?
It's going to be one open space. And in the middle portion, because we have 5 bikes, and my plan too is that you'll see the large garage doors, like on the back, is because I have a chain link fence all the way around the backyard. I'm going to be getting a riding lawnmower, and I'm not going to be able to get it back there. And also because we're putting the patio, right now we are imposing to have the garage. We have our patio there right now, and we're going to put the patio out beyond that, coming around. So when we entertain, that's going to be entertaining space out there, and we can always put like a screened, kind of have it like a little screened lanai too, like if it's bad weather and we're entertaining or something. But that's the primary reason for the door on the back, so we can get a rider through there and have it like a screened area if we're entertaining.
Are you going to be storing any more vehicles on the ground floor, other than what you have now?
We have 6 vehicles at the home right now.
I
Yes.
saw.
So I'm wanting to get, some of those vehicles, out of the way. But we don't, like I said, right now, we don't have a lot of storage space for like the lawnmowers and all that stuff, so,
Would you be driving like 2 deep, 3 deep in there?
we would have, in the back, we would put 2, and in the front, we can put 2.
Okay. So
We haven't
side
really
by two-
figured out exactly which cars are gonna be where, but knowing that we're gonna have space, and we're gonna be hanging all the bikes on the hooks from the ceiling.
How did you come up with the need for a 32-foot length addition? I mean, it's, it's 10 feet bigger than the existing garage itself, and if you put those two together, that with the garage portion now, it's actually longer than
I think it was
the
based
house
on the
itself.
length of the vehicles when we taught, my husband and I and Neil spoke, having, you know, another vehicle in there and then being able to have any, you know, like if you have, you know, vehicles like this and then have like riding lawnmowers or any of the, you know, outdoor, you know, equipment.
Would it be possible to cut it back to meet the setback requirement in the back? I think you're talking about 5 feet approximately,
It's,
5.5 feet.
Yeah, 5.5 feet.
I know. Well, do you want to get into the setback situation with what we, when we physically had him go out and look at the property and do the actual, layout of the garage and string it out, there is a difference, and we have contacted the survey map guy, regarding the land survey. Because it's really, in actuality, when we go back there and measure it and we go back that far, it says 2458, it's really like 33 feet. So, we didn't go for the correction. I know I spoke with somebody, I don't remember, maybe it might have been Harold, very beginning, about the map was incorrect. So we just decided to go for the variance instead of trying to get them to correct the map. So that's why we're going,
But if that's true, then there's no need for a variance, right?
correct, a back variance. We would need,
Back.
we actually
You still
needed a
need a side,
side.
sure,
And the
sure.
garage is already on hardship. If you look at the the left rear corner of the garage, it's already a little bit there. So we're already on a hardship for the garage, and all we were trying to do is going back, you know, the amount of space. So we thought we were only looking at a left-hand variance, and then that we had these discrepancies, but we just figured instead of fighting and going back and forth with, you know, having to go get new land survey maps and things done, that we would just come for the variance and see if we can make that happen.
See, the issue this creates for us is we're sort of charged with giving you the minimum that you would need to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So the question is, if you can get the storage and the thing that you need with a 27-foot addition, and that doesn't require a rear setback variance, that would make a difference to us. You follow what I'm?
Yeah, basically what we did is we measured up the vehicles and the mowers and stuff that they needed to get in that space, and that's how come we came up with that 32-foot. I don't know if you could cut it back, though.
Because there's stairs that are gonna go to the
'cause-
upstairs for the storage too.
And the other thing is that we're just talking about was that the actual physical setback from, I have string lines put up right where the garage is
I
proposed
saw
to
that,
be.
yeah.
From there to the actual property line, the physical measurements is 32 foot versus a 24, which I don't know who would be able to correct that besides get a complete new survey.
How were you able to determine where the rear line was? Is it staked?
Yeah, we had a surveyor come out and
met with them.
remark the back corners. But according to scale and the actual physical measurements, it doesn't add up. Because even if you take the side property line at 167 foot, and if you take from the front to the front of the garage, which on my print here is hard to see, over right here, if you take this measurement from the front to the front of the garage, add that plus the existing garage, the proposed garage, we're supposed to have 33 foot left in the back versus the
Yeah.
24.
Before you go any further, what references were you using for the front property line?
There's stakes right in the front that the surveyor,
You're not going
Verified.
from, let's say, the edge of the road or?
No.
Okay.
no, I think it's about 4 foot on the inside of the sidewalk, where the actual surveyor pins are, which, with, the numbers right on the top of the pin.
Leads me to another question. If we were to grant, let's say, a 5.5-foot variance, and it turns out that this measurement's incorrect, does that allow them to go 5.5 feet beyond what's there now? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
To put that in as a stipulation, like that they couldn't.
Well, we don't
Well-
want to go back any
No,
more
well-
than what we have.
Well,
no, but Mike brings up a very good point, because the variance is going to be granted for a 5-foot relief from the 30-foot requirement, and that's going to stay with the land. But I think in the wording of the resolution, we should
A
reference
future owner.
future
could
owners,
take it-
right, because
Okay.
it carries with the land
Unscrupulously
forever.
Right.
take advantage of your honesty
Right.
tonight is what the concern is.
I mean, I think it'd be best to get a map
Yeah.
to represent what it is, just to make sure that the paperwork is all correctly presented. But in the resolution, the writing of the resolution, will make reference to the physical size X by Y that the addition is being granted for. So at least we'll have that component in the resolution.
would it make sense to table it, to get this thing checked?
Well, let me ask a question that may address your issue. The plans that you have now, let's say that you put in the addition all your cars and all your lawnmowers and everything else. How much additional space is there going to be in this structure? With all your cars, with all your mowers and your other stuff?
I mean,
How much?
extra space, there's not going to be any extra
Be
space.
touching both walls, the front and the back?
Actually, we're not, we had to go backwards because we only have, the width is only 17.6. And we didn't have room to go sideways because of the 10 feet, and we didn't want to come anymore and encroach this way. So we figured it would be better to go back, and so, yeah, it's tight, on the sides, and so that's why we decided to go back, because, and it was gonna be less expensive, because we'd have to tear like the whole thing completely down. I mean, he's gonna be able to keep part of the garage as is and then build off of it, so it was gonna less
Well, I
costly.
got a question
as
for
a
Harold.
portion.
Harold,
Well, I
how
don't know
did
if
we
it addresses it or
determine
not.
that it's out of compliance? Did you measure it, or who measured it, or?
No,
How did it get that way?
I was presented the map on the drawings,
Right.
and if
Well,
you look
is
at
that
the,
what it says in the deeds? We have the deeds and the maps in
It
the
wouldn't deal with the
town here,
structure.
right?
yeah, the deed.
Oh, no, not the structure, just the points of, I mean, I can come down and find out how far front of my house is from the street, and the back of my house is from the back of my line, because when it was originally built, they put it in there.
Yeah, well, that's,
Depends on how
actually,
the
that's part of the
description's
application process. I mean, really,
Right.
frankly, what Joe's suggesting is perhaps a practical way to get to the answer, but you're the applicant, sort of the duty is yours to come in and with proper, accurate information. That sounds bad, but it's not meant to be bad. But Mike, let me ask you, Mike was asking you a legitimate question about basically, are you overbuilding?
No,
From your answer, it sounds like no, you're gonna use every inch of
Every
space, so
space.
so you can't lop off that 5.5 feet, even if you wanted to.
No.
You just, okay.
I wouldn't, I just wouldn't do it if that were the case. It just wouldn't be done. It wouldn't be worth us doing it. Then
Okay.
we wouldn't be able to get the cars that we need, needed to in there.
All right, and so I guess from what you're telling me, you could line up 3-4 cars deep here? I mean, is that what you're proposing to do?
Too deep,
Both ways?
yeah.
I don't know. You sort of lost me. So you got 22-foot,
And then we have stairs in there too, on, on the side here. So there's gonna be,
I mean, if we assume, can you get one car in your garage now?
one car's in there right now.
And that's 22 feet in length. You're proposing to put in an additional 32 feet to get another
We have-
car in?
to be able to get 2 cars in, and like a riding lawnmower, and we don't have anything right now. I have bikes sitting in my walkway out back. I don't have any storage space. The stuff that's in my home, a lot of it I want to get out, and that's gonna go on, most of it's gonna go on the second floor. But I do have, I have buckets of, I have 4 or 5 shovels, I have rakes, I have all types of lawn equipment, that's blowers and all kinds of stuff. That takes up a lot of space in the garage.
Okay, and upstairs, you're gonna put primarily what?
Primarily is gonna be all the things that we have for storage. I have artificial Christmas trees, I have like 10 boxes of ornaments, I have coolers, I have like 6, 7 suitcases, I have all kinds of stuff like that. The stuff is just stacked up in my area that's not finished, and I want to be able to, improve my home, get another bathroom, and make my home more efficient, increase the value of my home, make it,
Is the bathroom that you're thinking about going upstairs?
no. It's on the lower level.
So that's part of that too?
No.
That would be going in the newer section, in the addition?
No, not in addition. That would be in the house, but I can't do that now because all of the stuff that I need to put in storage, we came from a colonial, we had 2 floors, we had a basement and an attic, and a 3-car garage. And I have already downsized a lot of stuff, but I don't have room for any of it. So the stuff that's in my living area now, stacked up and try to organize, it's in the way. I have stuff kind of all over, and I want to get that into the second level. That's why the second level. I want to put all of that into that second level.
Okay.
And then build a bathroom where you took the stuff out.
Eventually, yes, once I pay down this addition that I'm paying for. So I'm gonna have to pay that down, and then hopefully within the next year, then, come and get a permit to do my bathroom.
And obviously, there'd be no occupancy in.
There's
any
no
portion of
occupancy
this.
in it, no, it's not gonna be a living space.
And the exterior, is that gonna match the existing exterior of the house?
Yes, T111, and all the same color, the front of the house is all being repainted, windows to match, everything to match what is existing.
What type of door in the rear?
Same as the front door, the same as that's on the front of the garage.
Okay. Well, you obviously wouldn't be loading vehicles, maybe
No,
not cars, because you
No
can't get
loading.
back there. And you're leaving
just
the,
a riding lawnmower, I wanna get a riding lawnmower.
is there buffering on that west side? I think there is. Isn't there trees in your neighbor's property that?
Right on the property line is a
The
whole
whole
row of
property
pines.
line, we have a whole, line of red pines. They're very, very tall, yeah.
And
So the
there's actu-
limbs aren't encroaching or near where we would be building or anything.
And what's adjoining on the back, the rear lot line? Another house?
Very far back. And there's a whole bunch of trees in front of their house, so their view, I believe, looking from the front of their house, they wouldn't even be able to see from all the view obstruction of the trees that they have in their front yard.
And the property owner to the west, their residence is how far from your property line? Just approximately.
To this side? Very far, there's 2 driveways. There's 2 driveways that go in between there, and then there's another set of trees in between the 2 driveways, and then their home, which is set back even further than,
So there would be quite a bit of space there
there's
between this.
a lot of space. The closest would be, I'm sorry, you said the west side. Yeah, the west side would be Mr. McMonagle's home. And I did show him, all the plans, and him and his wife, and they seemed to be okay with it, and he did sign the letter that I have.
Okay. So we have, and there's one issue then with the rear setback, obviously, that we discussed.
Correct.
On the side setback, you're asking for 2.75 feet variance,
Yes.
Yes, correct.
and that's at the rear corner, according to the map.
Correct. And again, the rear garage is already, on a hardship, so we're just coming straight off
Yeah,
of
I
that.
mean, we wouldn't want you to build it
Yeah.
this way, that would look silly. So-
Right.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Yeah, I have two questions. The line of trees that we were talking about, are those your trees?
I do not know. Both Jim and I both kind of, take care of the limbs and work together as neighbors to like manage them.
And the second question, do you have a shed?
I do not,
Okay,
no.
thank you.
Question I have, you're here in front of us, not because of what you're building, but where you're building it, the location. You said that your neighbors were okay with it. Are they aware that the issue here is location and not really what the structure is?
Yes.
Okay.
I've showed, and again, I've showed,
Show them the
based
maps
on-
and everything, and they
Yes.
see, okay, very good, thanks. Anyone in the audience care to speak about this application?
Do you have that paperwork with the neighbor's
Come on up.
signature?
The sign-
I have some questions, I think, but frankly, and before I ask them, I'd like to wish you luck.
Thank you, Jim.
Hope they're able to solve the issue that they have at hand. I'm the neighbor that lives just to the west with a line of trees and the side variance issues that you're talking about. My questions are really for my edification, so I understand what's actually happening. And then two of the questions will lead to maybe an interpretation that you can add to either what you said before or something new. First question, the footprint, does that account for overhang on the roof, or is that just where the building touches the ground? I'm asking that because if there's a long sway across the roof, it could actually be over the fence.
Overhang.
We measure the setback to the vertical walls of the structure, not to the overhangs.
And the
Okay.
overhang looks approximately about 2 foot. It's not like, it's gonna hang 6 foot over, just
Okay.
according to the prints, okay? You can turn around and look at it if you'd like.
Yeah, I saw that, I was just
Okay.
curious because.
I'm just trying to totally
Some
answer
are
your
pretty
question,
flush,
you know?
yeah.
Well, yep.
On
That question leads to a couple others.
Drawing
My
116
only
inches.
concerns, basically on my side, deal with the trees which are on my property, especially in the back part. There is a funny line there, it's a crooked line. So their fence line and the position in their house is at an angle to the property line itself, which of course what caused that issue. So I am not interested in having anything done to the trees to accommodate this. They are big mature trees, and in some cases, the limbs are already coming loose on them. So that's just a question, is there a preparation for that? And the side issue that comes from that, with the closeness of the variance, I think you might have addressed, has to do with how are you going to do maintenance on it on the second floor? If I put up a 20-foot ladder, I have to come out about 7.5 feet or so from the wall, and that's where the fence is. So I'm just wondering if there's any account being taken, not so much because I don't want them on my land, because anytime Michelle comes over and says, can I put a ladder up to paint my house, that's fine. The issue is more what happens later when I sell my house. Because I know when I moved in, a lot of things that are there now are things that probably wouldn't have happened if I lived there sooner and could have stopped it from happening because it's too close to the line with the adjacent neighbors. So there's a practical side to this, and what it boils down to is, what's this mean for the next tenant on my property? That's basically my question.
Well, that's a reason for setbacks, one of the reasons for setbacks to begin with. We've had people come in here and ask us to build right on the property line for what they thought were valid reasons, grading and such. And that's what we have to, I'm sorry, Mike, but that's,
no,
you know, these are the sorts of things that we have to weigh each and every application, because as Harold said earlier, if a variance is granted, it runs with the land, which means the next owner gets to enjoy the benefit of that. And your successor has to they're gonna have to deal with it. And a variance doesn't give her permission to go on your property.
I was
So-
just gonna say, Dan, presumably, a two-story structure is standard, and 2 stories is not a
Yes.
big deal. Presumably, 10 feet would be enough clearance. That's one of the reasons why we use 10 feet. So then the question is, does that other 2 3/4 feet, is that gonna make, that's, I guess what you're asking. Would it make a difference to be able to put a ladder up?
Right, I just don't
7
want
1/4?
you folks or Michelle to be in a situation down the road because of something that wasn't thought of. And to
Yep.
me, that's just something I always think of because I have to get up on a 30-foot ladder to deal with my house, and I know how far from the wall it is. I don't want anybody down the road getting stuck.
And
Because right now, all Michelle has to do is come over and say, can I put a ladder up? I mean, we're good neighbors, but
Sure.
that's right, and I think you're a very good neighbor, and I think the situation, if we allow this to be built, and even on what she has built now on her property, she may in the future somehow run into a situation where you can't put the ladder on your neighbor's yard, so you'll have to scaffold or do something that's a little more expensive. There are ways to get around it, but you will then take the responsibility if your neighbor does not allow you to put a,
Suppose he could grant her an easement now, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure he's ready
That
to
run,
do
that will
that,
run
but-
with your land.
Yeah, right.
And that 7 1/4 is the narrowest portion in the very back corner. The front's 9 1/2, so I
Yeah.
mean, you almost got a full 10
So
foot.
it would be a little bit of an amount that you'd have this situation, but again, it would be her responsibility. You could put up a scaffolding, and you could do any work that's really needed.
But it's a
Yeah.
good point.
Good questions, that's good.
And I guess my other one comes back to, I noticed it goes up pretty straight on here. Has any account been taken for the limbs on the trees? They're big trees. They're 70 or 80 feet high. And they have a wide stance. They're white pine,
What
soft
do you,
pine.
well, maybe that's a question for you or your contractor.
Yeah.
Are you intending on disturbing his trees in any way in order to build that? I mean, cut anything off? Of course, anything later on in life, I mean, I have trees in my neighbor's yard that, that's their responsibility. but-
There's no intention in disturbing the trees whatsoever,
Okay.
and the trees are set far back enough that we're not going to be disturbing them at all or being near them to have to build or take anything out or anything of that nature.
Okay,
Are the
good.
branches higher than this second
The,
story?
yes, they're all cut off. They're
Very
really
mature
high. The
trees.
trees are very mature. We do lose limbs throughout the winter. I mean, they usually just fall, straight down from the thing. I literally where we're wanting to build at, we have a hot tub and we've never even had one go in the hot tub or anything. So, I mean, it's not been a problem. So I'm not fearful or worried of any damage that even trees may cause to the addition because we haven't had any issues with trees, hitting, that area.
And I do have just one more question.
Yes, sir.
Maybe your contractor will answer this. When did you plan on starting this? Because you're gonna have to pour footers, you're gonna have to, is that this important this year to do it, or will you start it like next year? Tell me what you're gonna do.
We're hoping if you
Grant this.
grant this, and then we get a building permit to start as soon as we get the permit.
Okay,
So we,
that-
I want to get if we can, put the foundation in really quick, and then even if we have to wait to start framing because of other jobs I have going, I can come back when it's snowing, but the foundation has got to be put in ASAP.
Okay, good answer, yep, okay.
Anybody else in the audience care to speak about this? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Application number 2, Nina Livingstone, 472 Harrogate Drive, Rochester, New York, 14625. Requests a conditional use permit under Article 3-3-36-J and Article 10-10-4 of the code to allow a bed and breakfast facility at 472 Harrogate Drive. The property is owned by Nina Livingstone. It is zoned R-1-20. This is SBL number 108.19-1-29. This is application number 13Z-0045.
Yes.
I apologize. I meant to ask if these are the original contractor stamped copies for the board.
Yeah, just leave them, no, it's the board, I'll need those eventually. Yeah, yeah, just leave them here.
everybody. I'm Nina Livingstone, and I live at 472 Harrogate Drive, and I am asking for bed and breakfast to be allowed at my home. And Mr. Joe Gordon is my attorney, and he is going to present the information for me tonight. Thank you.
Good evening to members of the board and also to my neighbors. I am here in connection with an application which probably is one of the most formulated along the period of time it's been changed. And what you have in front of you, I received papers just moments ago, is a set of materials that are related to ideas that my client had before consulting counsel and things that she posted on the web before consulting counsel. And there is a petition that was signed with all of the signatures of which predating the notice which my client filed with Mr. Morehouse in November, which indicated that many of the things that the neighbors were very concerned about are in fact not proposed and are in fact not contemplated, although they were at an earlier date. What is before the board is not an application to run some kind of leased space for people to come in and do presentations to 20 people. There is no longer any website that makes reference to 20 people. There is a petition here for one thing, and that one thing is for a conditional use permit to operate a bed and breakfast at her home. There is no petition for any other use that is subject to a conditional use permit.
Let me ask you a question, though. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you are not making a petition for any other relief. But are there any other activities occurring there? And you don't, let me ask my next question, too, or do you intend to engage in any other activities? And the reason I'm asking is your answer, if it's in the affirmative, is going to raise issues that are relevant to the application for the B&B. So I just want you to keep in mind we may get into those issues, likely will, not for the purpose of an application for something other than a B&B, but for the B&B itself.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
Okay.
Basically, this is a very beautiful home, which Bill Livingstone, who was the deceased husband of the petitioner, did an enormous amount of work to put into its current condition, which is really outstanding. He's done very fine work, which was recognized in a historic district in the town of Pittsford. And the petitioner was a stay-at-home mom. She, after his passing, after multiple brain surgeries over 2.5 years, she took out a reverse mortgage in 2012 to make ends meet. And in order to supplement the income that provides, she has expressed interest in having this bed and breakfast. She began letting out a room occasionally in mid-April of 2012. There were no issues and no concerns, and I don't know if anybody even noticed, but she obviously did not file an application at that time. She was a distressed person looking for ways to put things together. And I doubt that there was no sign. We're not proposing to have a sign. It was just happening and nobody was affected. People have moved in next door and drafted a petition, which, as I said, all of the signatures predate the document that we filed with the town at the beginning of November, which basically indicate a kind of fear that some people have been have had, but what my client did at the time the PGA was here in August, from August 5th to August 11th, according to the Rochester Business Journal, it brought in about $78 million to the local economy. She had some little sliver of that come her way and was happy for that. And she had a petition arrive, or a citation arrive a short time later, saying that she needed permission, which at that point she contacted me and we started working on this. But there were a number of people in August, and she understands. She met with Andy Suvegas and also with Mr. Morehouse, and we have installed an appropriate smoke alarm in the room that is involved. This is not an attempt to rezone. There is a single room. There is an existing zoning. This room, that is the room being proposed to be used, used to be the room of her son Jason, who now is a proud father out in Boulder, Colorado. And this room basically is the hub of this entire controversy. Jason decorated the ceiling himself. I think it's quite artistically done, and his father built most of the furniture. But Jason isn't here anymore. Jason used to be very active, and he was the head of the ski team. He was after graduating high school, he spent a period of time in Calcutta, India, where Mother Teresa's project was, and worked there in India to help others. And when he came back, he sponsored a program at Halloween where they collected so much food that it filled a truck, and all of that went to the Penfield Food Bank. The family has done for others, and Ms. Livingstone has been in that house for 28 years. She'd like to be able to stay there, and this application can make that possible. The Penfield Post carried the articles about the work that Jason did in India, and also the food collection. But what we're really looking at is the zoning code. And this is not a question of fear, but a question of law. If we took the position that some person was injured in a bed and breakfast, so we shouldn't have a bed and breakfast, we could take the position that some child was injured in a school, and so we shouldn't send our children to school. It's not a logical construct. The fact that there was an issue somewhere doesn't mean that we should change the law. The zoning code is part of a master plan. It reflects the development of that master plan, and we have an excellent zoning code, which, like other towns around us, also allow for bed and breakfasts. We have that because people who own real property have the right to use it, and people who have 4 teenagers with their cars in the driveway, or a great many children in their house, and an in-law, as we did on our block, or customary home occupations. Mr. Mansour and I both had law practices on the same street as all of these people. That's a business. And at the same time as that, there were people who had very large families on the street, one of whom actually had an in-law apartment built during the time that he was there. So we had both customary home occupations and a home with a great many children and an in-law apartment as well. The comprehensive plan doesn't make special provisions for cul-de-sacs or dead-end streets or curvy streets or any other kind of streets. The cul-de-sac happens to be in a R-1-20 zone. That's the zone. It isn't a cul-de-sac zone. It isn't a curvy street zone. It's a zone. And at my end of the street or any other end of the street, it's the same zone. We don't have special fire or anything else for curvy streets or dead-end streets. And I'll talk a little later about some case law, which there actually is, about dead-end streets. But because there is a comprehensive plan, and I apologize because I'm talking to people who know this stuff up and down, there is a landmark case about what's called spot zoning. The Rogers versus Village of Tarrytown case was decided by the highest court in the state. And it basically said that the zoning of relatively small parcels of land differently from other parcels of land has to be examined in terms of whether that would be for the benefit of individual owners or part of a comprehensive plan for the general welfare of the community. I submit to the board, as the town probably considered at the time that the town adopted the zoning code, that each of the provisions, including the one that was added on January 7th, 1985, concerning bed and breakfasts, was something that was developed in accordance with the comprehensive plan. The nature of a conditional use permit is an important one. The conditional use permit is not a request for a variance. It is a request for a use that is presumed to be a permissive use. And I'm looking at one of the leading treatises on real property, Warren's Weed, Volume 15, and basically, if the board finds that the application for a special use permit shows compliance with the conditions of the regulation, a permit must be issued. That doesn't mean that the board has no discretion, but it does mean that there is a legislative presumption that the use is in accordance with the overall plan. The board has discretion to withhold a special use permit where there are reasonable grounds to deny the application, but they must have a rational basis. The ordinance allows bed and breakfasts and has allowed them for a number of years, as some of our neighbors' ordinances do also. One of the leading cases in this area is the North Shore Steakhouse case, which really distinguished. There were two applications. One was an application for a use variance, and one was an application for a conditional permit, or in that case, it was, instead of a conditional use, their code used the word special exception. But in the North Shore Steakhouse case, the lower court basically applied the same standards to the review of each of those, and they were reversed by the highest court. And the Court of Appeals indicated that the standard for a conditional use permit is quite different. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Now, there was a very significant case in which the appellate division issued a decision concerning the construction of housing for migrant workers at a mushroom farm. And that was the Frangella Mushroom Farms versus Zoning Board case, in which the appellate division was affirmed on its own decision by the Court of Appeals. The neighbors were all united in opposition to having this housing built for migrant workers who had had very shabby housing, and the mushroom farm owners were trying to build better housing for the migrant workers, and it was all opposed by the community. The Court of Appeals, in adopting the appellate division's decision, said the inclusion of the permitted use in the ordinance is tantamount to a legislative finding that the permitted use is in harmony with the general zoning plan and will not adversely affect the neighborhood. Now, the Penfield ordinance has a bed and breakfast provision for that reason. A homeowner who doesn't utilize every bedroom doesn't necessarily have the right to say, my neighbor has to not utilize every bedroom, or I can keep my neighbor from utilizing every bedroom. We have a comprehensive plan that was developed carefully and that resulted in a zoning code that allows for a bed and breakfast on conditions. And the board certainly, in all conditional use cases, is in a position to impose reasonable conditions. And that is anticipated. There have been cases involving dead-end streets, and I guess it's worth talking about those because that's much has been made of that in this situation. There was a church that wanted to be at the end of a dead-end street, at the outer end of a dead-end street, in a residential neighborhood, and the church certainly had greater impact on that street than Jason's bedroom will. But the church was allowed to be built. American Friends of the Society of St. Pius versus Schwab, at the end of a dead-end street, over the objections of the neighbors. The people who of course, you know, that was a larger use, and it was also a church. So the church gets special consideration, obviously, but the use that it imposed and the burden that it imposed on the street was also considerably greater than what we're proposing tonight. There was another case which is kind of interesting, also involving a dead-end street, Syosset Holding Corporation versus Schlim from Nassau County, which was affirmed in part and modified in part in the appellate division. That case involved not a church, but a gas station at the end of a dead-end street. And that was a very different set of facts, because the gas station was not at the end of the street. It was on a busy commercial street, and the gas station you would go past on your way in, on your way out. But the objectants, of course, everyone on the street objected. The objectants basically, the trial court indicated that the objectants knew that this property was on a commercial street, and that in that zone, that was on the commercial street, it was a business zone, and many other uses were already permissible as of right in that zone, of greater impact than even than the gas station, and that the people on the dead-end street had to know that when they moved in, because that was the code when they moved in. And there are numerous places where heavy burden areas exist in residential streets. The Cobbles Elementary School is on Gebhardt Drive in this community. It It's virtually, I mean, it runs into Cobble's Drive, which is a cul-de-sac, and people coming in and out of those homes go past the Cobble's Elementary School, and all the traffic for Cobble's Elementary School goes past all the residential homes. It just happens to be part of what's allowed in a residential zone. The impact of this is almost microscopic. It is not the 20-person thing that people were contemplating that was mentioned in the petition that predates our November filing with Mr. Morehouse. Here, as in the gas station case, the Syosset Holding Corporation case, we have the need to compare in reviewing the conditional use permit what is whether the proposed use will be greater in its burden than the results from uses that are permitted as of right in the same zone. Now, the Court of Appeals in Robert Lee Realty versus Village of Spring Valley and Warren's Weed Real Property, Volume 15, Sections 161-56, the code, excuse me, the question is, will the proposed use be greater than what is permitted as of right? What is permitted as of right in this zone includes, with just a building permit, includes an in-law apartment. It includes customary home occupation. Customary home occupation can be a dentist's office with patients coming in and out of the home every half hour. That's permitted as of right without a special permit. Those people or the people who come to my home office, or the people who used to come to Mr. Mansour, our neighbor's home office, are that's traffic that's permitted as of right. So what traffic in and out of Jason's room would involve pales in comparison to what is permitted as of right in the same zone. And those are business uses within the home by the person who lives there with no employee, et cetera. Also permitted in this zone with no special or conditional use permit is the having a lot of teenagers with cars. None of the, I mean, teenagers have music lessons and soccer practice and soccer teams, and I see a Penfield Rec person here. And people with teenagers are in and out of the property all the time. And the people who will come to a bed and breakfast will not be receiving FedEx deliveries. They will not be going to music lessons or having their teams come over to play or anything like that. The burden that one person in this bedroom will impose on this neighborhood is microscopic. I did mention there are bed and breakfast provisions in the town of Webster and the village of Fairport. And Jason's bedroom, as indicated in our application, measures exactly 155 square feet. My client pays taxes on 2.227 acres in size of land, if I have that correctly, and her request to utilize that bedroom, now that Jason's not there anymore, is, we submit, entirely reasonable, and it is entirely possible to have conditions designed and fashioned by the board which make it possible for her to continue to use that room instead of close it up. I don't know if it's, I mean, we don't, I guess, need to get into the subject matter of the conditions at this point, but that is obviously a key part of the procedure for a conditional use permit, and it's the place where the board gets to make sure that the presumptively permissive use doesn't adversely affect neighbors. But the use is appropriate. Two corrections in our changes in our petition I would just like to note at this time. I spoke with Mr. Morehouse, but he indicated it would be possible to do this on the record. My client will offer breakfast at the bed and breakfast, and I mistakenly, we both missed a, in the letter of intent, Jason was born after the family moved in, but he grew up his entire life at the Harrogate Drive address, but I had that wrong in the opening line. And I think the board, like many zoning boards, is faced often with times when there is opposition, but the master plan and its expression in the zoning code for the benefit of the public and for the overall common good, including use of one's property, is what should control here. A lot of there's been a lot of concern about things. I noticed in the papers that I got shortly before coming here, there was a handicapped vehicle that was photographed. I didn't have a chance to see what date the photograph was, but I assume that was a guest of Ms. Livingstone, probably Nicolette Mansour, who was a friend of her daughter and visits her home in a handicapped access vehicle. I don't know that that's objectionable, really, but some people saw fit to go around photographing everything that pulled up on the driveway, and that ended up in the pack. There was also a lilac garbage truck. We all have garbage service. The person who goes into Jason's room won't add any of that, but everyone else obviously has the same need. The tenant or the guest in a bed and breakfast isn't going to add appreciably. Thank you. There will be some other person speaking on behalf of Ms. Livingstone, if, should we
But
Proceed
what I
with
would
that.
like you to do at this
Yeah.
point is.
talk about the
well,
other?
no. If there are other uses
Mm-hmm.
for the house, the meditation center, I think you should spend a little bit of time describing how that works so that we can then appropriately formulate questions about the B&B application.
Okay. Right. Well, I think the
It's part-time and 2 or 3 or 4 people come. It's very small.
yeah, the
And if I may, I want you to understand why I'm asking for this. Because it may be something that's permitted, it may be something that's allowed. I don't know, because I haven't really heard the facts about this use. However, even assuming it's permitted and it's allowed, that use may result in impacts that are going to be relevant for this board in deciding whether or not to grant your conditional use permit for a B&B. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say the meditation business, by its nature, is very successful and creates a full driveway and is so successful that people start parking on the street. Let's just say that. That would be something that would be relevant for us to determine it as to whether or not we should grant you the conditional use permit on the B&B. So there is an overlap. And I guess I'm asking you to comment on that, because we've heard about it already with the written material. So you might as well address
Yeah.
it now before we start asking questions, because you're the applicant. It'd be nice to hear it from you first.
Well, I can say with certainty that what is in the materials that you received, the packet that I just got from Mr. Morehouse, includes copies of web pages that are down and are not proposed and were an idea that is withdrawn, and we have documented that it was withdrawn. What Ms. Livingstone did for years is occasionally have people over. I think,
I would really like
yeah,
to speak because
okay.
I think it's simpler. Once a month, I have a small introduction to meditation, which is a 3-hour class. I've been offering meditation for about 15 years in this community, and I'm limiting to 12 people in any class, and I haven't had more than 3 or 4. I think once I had 5 in all these years. This is not a moneymaker. This is a heart gift that I share. And as I said, I have 2 people coming. It's the first time in months that somebody's coming to learn meditation. And they're coming for 2 hours in a couple of weeks in the afternoon. So it's so part-time that I can't see it being at all, affected. I had, I think one guest was at my house during that August time when I had a class upstairs before I found out that I needed to drop that idea, but a friend was teaching a Reiki class, and he had 3 people. So the cars were fine, and, there wasn't a problem. I mean, there's just not, I don't foresee it in my future to have what you're suggesting with all those cars.
Right.
But it's never happened.
Okay.
I can't say more than that, Daniel. I mean, it's just been.
Let me ask it this way then. Are you familiar with the zoning code? And I'm sorry, Joe, I know it, but are you familiar with the requirements of a customary home occupation in the code?
As far as I understand it,
Yeah.
I fit that.
Okay, well, then, I'm glad you said that, because I want to ask you to tell me why you think you fit that.
Because I spoke with Harold, and he thought that I did.
Well, but I mean factually.
Factually, I don't,
Right.
don't have those kind of things in my head. It's my work,
Okay?
and I'm the only one offering the classes.
That's a fact,
And-
that's relevant, yeah.
Yeah, I'm the only one that does it. I'm the only teacher there. I also offer healing. I do a particular kind of healing. I'm the only healer there. And I have nobody that works for me. I don't pay any employees. I have no subs. I have no, and since I found out I'm not having any friends come and teach there, I'm not doing that. So it's just me.
You're not renting a room out for people to use
I
for
am
meetings
not
or
renting,
anything?
I am not renting anything.
Okay.
I got that very clear. It's
Okay.
been made very sparkling clear, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I understand the rules, and I'm fine to live with them.
All right.
Does that answer?
Well, and yeah, and it's nice to hear that perhaps there were things that shouldn't have been happening, and you've altered your conduct
Yeah, because I
accordingly.
didn't know. And the other thing is that it's always going to be part-time. I have no interest, if you go on my calendar, I offer 2 free meditation sessions. No one has come in months. They're free. And the only money-making thing is this intro that I offer once a month, or if somebody has to come another time. And I may have small classes, but I don't even think I'd want 12 people, because it would just be me teaching alone. So. Thank you.
Sir, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Is there any, just on.
Go for it,
No, I
go
just,
for
no,
it.
I'm
Go,
I'm
go, go.
There's
talking
gonna be
about,
plenty of time to ask
yeah,
questions.
I'm talking about on the meditation.
Sure.
Is there anything in the, have you made any accommodations to the rooms to do what you're doing on the meditation level?
I just, when my husband died, our upstairs living room, I just took out furniture and put it in the the basement, I didn't put any new furniture in when that room was finished. That's it. There's nothing new. It's just simply a living room without furniture.
So it's like a sort of a studio kind of thing.
It's like a studio, yeah, yeah,
Thanks.
with quiet lighting.
Joe?
Okay, let's start out. I'm gonna try and build this up just for my information, okay? You're applying for a bed and breakfast, right? Under what name?
Nina Livingstone.
Okay, and that's the DBA that you're using is Nina Livingstone?
Yes,
Okay, can we just,
I
there are other
I mean,
DBAs that you have, am I correct?
I don't know, I guess it's not technically a DBA, because I've been doing it on Airbnb, I haven't registered as a DBA for
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I've just
and-
been doing that
But
online.
that's just my question.
Yeah.
So that's under Nina Livingston, and it's called Healing with Awareness?
No, my business is, that's an old one, I don't use that anymore.
Okay,
Except for I have an old website that is forwarding to a quieter place.
Okay,
And
so
I only have
now
one website now.
you
that I
have
use.
three actually, that are under Livingstone Industries, okay, DBAs that are listed.
Livingstone Industries? I don't understand.
Well, that's what I want to know. What
Well,
are
please,
those? Do
could you
know
read them
anything
to me, and
about
then
them?
I'll be able to tell you what they are, because I know I went downtown to the city a couple of times to get DBAs every time I was trying to do something and change my business name
Well,
to try to make
that's why
business.
I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Is Livingston Company, DBA, and if you want me to read the number,
I have
11.
no memory of that
Okay.
whatsoever.
All right, how about Livingston Industries?
No,
Okay, how about Livingstone Industries Incorporated?
that's not us. That's
That's
not
not you?
me. No.
Okay.
If I can, your husband had a business
He had
contract-
Stillbrook Company, and it was incorporated.
Okay,
And it was DBA before it was incorporated, but it was Stillbrook Company.
Okay,
Even
and that's
when
what
it
I'm
was
trying to find out. Is this you
No.
or is it you?
No, the only
my
DBAs
question,
I've
that's all.
taken out, I think, is, at one point, took out a DBA for the meditation group, which nothing ever came from, and that was like probably 15 years ago.
Okay, that would
And-
be Nina Livingston and Nina Livingston. And it says Meditation Group.
Yeah, that was one
Okay.
that never became anything,
so that
actually.
one-
Threw out the checkbook, like a
Okay.
few months ago. It never became anything. And then Healing with Awareness, which I worked with since 2004. approximately.
Okay, is that called Deep Healing Center? Because that's another one that,
That was one I hoped for, and it didn't come to anything.
So
I
that's
really
gone.
just tried, gone,
okay.
yep,
How about Loving Presence Counseling?
yep, that's gone too.
Gone.
Gone,
Okay. How about, and you said A Quieter Place, which is the one that's, but you still have the one that says Healing with Awareness that
Well,
shoots your emails
yes.
to A Quieter Place.
Shoots website
Transfer,
contact.
you know what I'm
Shoot-
talking.
Shoots
I'm not very-
website contact.
Yes.
It's one
Yeah,
of those.
forwarded.
Forwarded, yeah,
Okay, the other website.
that's the language,
Okay, and then how about Cheryl A. Livingston?
not me.
Name catchers, not you.
No.
So all these DB, okay, that's,
I'm glad you checked it out, Joe. I mean,
Yeah.
I know I have a collection,
again,
because that
we
shows
have
you
to
how
be-
hard I've tried to make a
right,
living.
and we have to be aware of if there's multiple businesses in a place.
Right.
Okay, we've had that situation before, and if they're not you, then they're not you.
No, it's
If
just
they've
a
been
quieter place.
Canceled, then they've been canceled.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
nothing.
So now, you have, let's talk about the meditation, okay?
Yes.
You do meditation classes, right? And then you do healing classes, because it states in your letter, you're gonna continue to offer individual or group meditation, relationship presentations, and healing at your home as a customary home occupation.
Yes, I'd like to
Okay,
do
so, and I think you just stated, you know, I was gonna ask you, do you charge for these? But,
Yes.
go ahead, you answer.
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
I have open class meditation that's free right now to help people who want to meditate come.
Okay,
And I've got my meditation classes, and I'm going to be developing classes in relationships. And also, I do healing, which is on my website, and it's very clear that I offer healing. I don't do classes in healing.
okay, well, I'm just reading your letter.
Yeah.
Your customary home
It may have been the
occupation,
language
your
my-
healing at your home and.
Yeah,
and
well, I do
classes.
healing,
Yeah.
but the
But the-
classes, it's meditation classes.
But I think, as the petitioner indicated, the scope of this in terms of the number of people and the frequency of people being there is very, very limited and very occasional.
And that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have the other business, you said, how many people have you had that have rented your houses? I think you told me, but I want to put it on the record. How many people have
I've
actually
had
rented
10
rooms from you?
people, 10 people in 2 years.
Okay. And all your websites, you know, I had a bunch of
The-
questions about your website, but your website's now down, it doesn't count anymore, you know, about, you, because you stated you're serving breakfast, and some of the people on your website, it said, you know, there's a contradiction there.
Right,
But if
because
your
I
website's
realized
down-
that if I need to, you know, it's the same thing as this process here. If I need to get a bed, in order to get a bed and breakfast, to offer breakfast, I will do that.
Okay,
But so far on Airbnb, it's been up to you. Whoever is the host gets to say what they're doing and what they're offering people. And so I've been offering, you know, come and stay.
But
and-
the petition is amended, and she is
follow the
offering
rules
breakfast.
is the key. That's
She's-
right. See, I'm just trying to find
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
what
No,
went
I want
on,
to follow the
offering
rules.
what you
I'm
want to
not-
do in the future, and if they're within the rules or not within the rules. That's what we're
Right, and I
determining
didn't
here.
understand what the rules were, and I certainly didn't understand about offering breakfast, because I
Fair
didn't know
enough.
that I needed to do this through the town.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see what else we got here.
And I think actually, the conditions that are in Article 10 are proscriptive rather than prescriptive. You can't offer other meals to the bed and breakfast people, and you can't offer any meals to members of the public. But she's going to offer breakfast anyway.
Okay. And in the past, you've rented out the house to other therapists. You're not going to do that in the future. You've
Right.
never rented it out to.
No,
one
no, I
shaking
know, I
their head,
said
the
I
other one
did,
going, you know,
no, I just, the word therapist, because the people who have taught there have not been therapists, so my head was trying to
Oh,
grasp
okay.
that, Joe.
But
that's
you
all.
have in the past rented it out to other people to use to do classes that are getting paid.
I have
right?
shared, yeah, I mean, I had
Okay.
somebody teach something, and then, yeah, 2 people, that was it, 2. That was it.
Okay, but you're
No
not
more.
going to do that anymore.
No more. I've told them both, no more.
And you talked about the renters being screened by Airnab, or I don't know how to pronounce it.
Airbnb.
AIRNB.
Airbnb.
BNB, okay.
Airbnb, yeah.
Go ahead, give me a little about that.
Well,
how
they're
that works.
verified. They're,
Yeah.
do you have a
There-
list of the verifications, Joe? 'Cause I
There
didn't
is,
bring it.
in the letter of intent, there is a description. There are security requirements offered which are elective with the person who participates in the program. It's at the top of page 2 of the letter of intent. And it indicates, and this was changed also from the original use. She has signed up for the maximum security requirements that are provided by Airbnb. When the town opened the ordinance to B&B use in 1985, none of these security provisions existed. But Ms. Livingstone is now signed up for verified identification. They will typically get a driver's license on file, a verified phone number, a profile photo, a photograph, and a trip description. And not until after all of those things are received can the person even ask for a registration. The security that is provided by that certainly exceeds whatever there was in 1985 when people would pick up the phone and they'd hear a voice on the other side, "I'd like a room." They didn't have any of that. So I think the petition also indicates that the caliber of people who've been coming through there are not flim-flam. There was a recently married couple. There was a professor from who came to Rochester to get a position, who had a position, who was hired by RIT as a professor and needed a place to use as a base while he was getting ready for the school year, a woman who came for an aunt's funeral, an owner of a large organic fruit farm, and somebody for the PGA.
So what you're saying is you have tried to enhance your security through this website?
Oh, yeah,
Because
I've
there has
done-
been some problems
absolutely.
through the website, obviously.
Well,
So-
completely. I've done all of that, and they keep adding more stuff. Those guys are really, I mean, I think, I'm
Okay,
really
no,
happy
good.
with
That's why I'm
them.
asking, so you
Yeah,
think
it's my home, so
Yeah.
I'm really happy, and I've been absolutely delighted by my guests. We've had a lot of fun, and they've been lovely people, every single one of them.
Okay, and just to clear the record up, you've actually changed this bed and breakfast from one bedroom to another bedroom, am I correct?
Yes.
In the beginning, it was in the basement,
Yes,
because that, again, now that your website's gone, that was referred to in some of the websites, and when I came, you had showed me on a first floor bedroom.
right,
So
because
the
we
first time
found-
Andy came,
Andy came, said that one cannot be
Okay.
a bed and breakfast unless the exit space is larger and the window's 1 inch lower.
okay, so that's what has to
And so
be
we
done.
just moved, well, my daughter moved downstairs, and the bedroom moved upstairs, and it's all been fixed up, and Andy has come and said that it's ready if you guys give it to me. And it's waiting. And I'm
Okay,
hoping.
so in the bedroom that you keep referring to, I apologize. it was
Jason's bedroom,
Jason's?
that's the one that's the
Wasn't
one you
Jason's
saw.
bedroom, it was your daughter's bedroom.
No, it was
recently.
Jason's, when he painted
It was
it.
always, I mean, for a long time, it was Jason's bedroom.
Yeah.
and
But I'm trying to
she was
understand,
there
your daughter
I-
was staying upstairs.
Recently.
Yeah,
in,
she
quote,
was
Jason's
recent-
room, and you
yeah.
were renting downstairs.
Yeah, because
Now your daughter-
Jason's in grad school in Colorado, so,
Right. I'm just trying to,
yeah,
if you'd have said your daughter's, I'd have got it clear because
right, there, right there.
on what it said. So now, she's downstairs.
Yes,
And
yes.
you're renting the bedroom upstairs.
Yes,
Okay, so that's the change that we're
you got it.
talking about.
Yes, Joe.
Okay, that's all I have, Danny.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question. You said you would not be renting anything like to the Reiki instructor, et cetera?
Yeah.
Are you still going to have them come and do it for free?
No,
They
No.
won't be coming at all?
no, no.
Okay.
I understand completely what this is about. This is my place and I need to run it myself, and I get it. I totally get it. I do.
The married couple you just mentioned that you rented to, that was the downstairs place?
Yeah, yeah, they were on their way.
Now you can accommodate one person, right?
Well, I can still, I have a mattress underneath, so if a couple comes through, they can stay there.
Like a trundle, kind of?
No, like an extra mattress. That's the thing about this.
Oh,
It's
I
pretty,
see it here.
it's pretty flexible, yeah. It's underneath, and that was how the married couple stayed, and they were perfectly okay with that.
My wife wouldn't sleep on it.
Yeah, well, a lot of people aren't doing it, but, you
I know
know.
where I'm sleeping.
You're welcome.
I have a couple of questions that will lead to factors for us to consider in whether or not to grant a conditional use permit. Your lawyer's certainly done a thorough job of going through, but let me ask you for some specific answers on some of these factors. In order to grant it, we have to conclude that the use would not be detrimental to adjacent properties because of its, and then there's a whole laundry list of items. I'm not going to touch on all of them, but I'm going to ask you to touch on some. So the first one is means of ingress and egress. Can you tell me why the means of ingress and egress would not result in a detriment to neighboring properties?
The use of a room involves somebody coming in and out, but the traffic generated by a bed and breakfast guest will be less than the traffic generated by a teenager with a car any day of the week.
All right,
and,
and that seems simple, and I appreciate that. Would you be willing to commit to not having both the B&B and the meditation operating at the same time?
On the same day at the same time.
At the same moment. I mean, obviously, they're, to avoid any issue that there may be with, and you can think about that. I just asked you that, so think about that. I'll just throw that out there.
I think so.
Another factor.
And the collision likelihood, given the infrequency of the meditation use, is
Understood.
very low.
And we're learning
So I
some
think-
things about
so I think-
meditation for the first time tonight.
Yeah, so I think the answer is yes to that.
But again,
I'd also like to say that it's kind of, I mean, people come so infrequently with Airbnb, you know, where they just come when they come.
right.
So, are you saying I would need to cancel classes when they've already been scheduled? I'm wondering about it technically. I mean, I would like to say yes to
Well, but,
everything.
my answer
don't
to
know
that
how.
would be potentially. If you are anticipating 5 cars because of a class, and then somebody calls up and says, I'd like the room that night. If my question was a general one, would you be willing to say you're not going to operate both simultaneously? And again, don't need to answer.
But I guess I'd want more specific conditions because my driveway can hold 6 cars easily. I mean, it's like.
So then your answer
So-
your answer then would be no. And I'm not saying you're giving that now.
No, Dan, I'm
but-
just saying I don't, you know, if there were 6 or 8 people coming, it would be easier for me to say I get what
Okay,
you're
well, so,
saying. But
yeah.
I
Okay.
would just like to have
So
more parameters that are
we could then
specified.
say no more than a total number of 5 people visiting for both purposes at once, or something along those lines. It's just something worth talking about, and that's the only
Okay.
reason I bring the point. Because I'm sure we're gonna hear that traffic flow and parking are either an issue or are potentially an issue, so we all need to address that.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be easier to address that with the number of cars at any one time?
Sure, there's another example of a way it could be done. So again, I'm just throwing these things out here. And then the second one is adequacy of parking facilities. You have a long driveway, and do you ever anticipate users of either B&B or meditation parking on the street?
Depends on the weather in part. I mean, I've already spoken with my plow guy, And he
Okay.
knows I need that whole area cleaned really well this year.
Okay.
And I'll be on top of him about that. But sometimes, like, my daughter will come home, like last night, I had some friends over for something, and they were parking in the driveway, and my Emily had to park on the cul-de-sac, and then she pulled in when they were gone. So that kind of flexibility is what we've been doing.
Okay, well, and certainly visitors, friends, and relatives, everybody has those. But when we are being asked to consider or authorize a business or businesses in a home,
Right.
one of the things that we certainly have to consider are the ability of other residents in the area to be able to get in and out, and have their visitors and their friends be able to get in and out. And then, of course, also municipal vehicles and emergency vehicles as well.
Sure, sure.
So-
So I totally understand that, and I think that Michael's suggestion about having a specific number of cars
Right.
might
And,
cover that.
you know, of course, blizzards happen, so we know that, okay. The next factor here is potential impact to both present and future uses.
Well, I think because this is a conditional use permit, the potential impact, conditional use permit is granted with a duration. So unlike a setback, this isn't going to carry into, long periods of time. So I think because of the nature of this, there is a duration, and then
And you're not making
everybody
any
can have a
modifications
chance.
to the property that are gonna impact
None.
any other future owners?
Absolutely,
No, and
no,
in-
no
And in
modification.
fact, even though the conditional use for bed and breakfast in Article 10 permits a certain kind of a sign with a certain dimension, the petition in this case, when filed, already waived having a sign. So
Right.
there was no request for a sign.
So the next item here is at least to me, my initial reaction is perhaps the biggest one. And that is that the proposed use is not detrimental because of its compatibility with the general area in which it is located. You know, that's, you can debate what that language means, and that's why we have courts, and that's why we have case law as cited by counsel. But let me just ask you, why is the use of a B&B on this lot compatible with the area?
Well, the setback is very large. There is buffering between, and it's actually, we have an appraiser who came to look at the property, Steve Ferrara from a Penfield based Pogel, Shubmel, and Ferrara appraisal group, who's very skilled in this area. But I think and he has been there and taken a look, and I think he'll be able to offer some useful information to the board. But I think this property is actually at a lower elevation than the entrance to it is at a lower elevation than the street, and the house is off to the side so that if you're on the street looking down, you don't even see what's there because it's very set back, and there are trees. So it's almost, you almost can't see it. And of course, the room that we're talking about has windows which are in the pictures that you have before you, which don't even see any other building on the street. When you look out either direction from the windows in that room, if you hollered loud out either of those windows, nobody would hear a thing. It looks at the woods, it looks at the ravine going over to White Village. It is not in anybody's face, it is not bothering any neighbor at all. And the photos are right there.
Sir, you said the setback is very large, and you said the setback is far back. Exactly how far back is the setback?
Well, I think the survey map that we provided in the application itself, I think the requirement in an R120 zone is 50 feet, and the setback to this is more than double that. If I'm not, the driveway is the longest driveway on the block. And the house is at the end of the driveway at a lower level than the rest of the block, on the side out of the way. I'm just going to the survey very quickly.
While he's looking that up, let me
Yeah.
ask you, do you intend to allow guests to use the kitchen to cook?
She's going to offer breakfast.
Yeah.
She
Right.
has up to this point indicated a willingness to allow them. It's not attached to the room. If the board makes a condition that they not have access to the kitchen, I guess.
Other than sitting and having tea,
Yeah,
because that's what,
yeah.
Well, sure. Or
Yeah.
drinking, but I mean actually to cook, to cook a meal.
if you feel like that's not okay, I'll just make that part. of it.
Frankly, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I just wanted to
Okay.
know what the.
They
what the
have up
answer
until
was.
now, but mostly everyone goes out for breakfast anyway. And
Right.
at one point in the beginning, I did offer breakfast if they wanted to pay, and nobody took it up. So, I'm still gonna charge money if, when I offer it, and hope that
Okay.
nobody does.
Yeah. Now-
But,
And now I've had a chance to look, the setback from the closest angle of the structure to the cul-de-sac is 144 feet, way past the 50-foot requirement. And it's at a lower level, and it goes off the straight line of the street into the woods. And the setback from the nearest edge of the property to the dividing line between this property and the immediately adjoining lot is over 100 feet by a few inches. But again, double the minimum. But that's a side setback, so that might even be less. But in any event, it's over 100 feet.
Anything else from the board? Okay, anyone in the audience care to speak on this?
Well, could we have Mr. Ferrara?
Oh, okay, he's actually
been-
here, yeah, sure.
Yes,
Come on up,
yeah.
I apologize.
No refreshment breaks, huh?
There may be shortly.
Would be good. My name's Steve, Steve Ferrara. I'm just here to represent the real estate appraiser's point of view. I actually live in the town, lived here since 1990. Been an appraiser for over 30 years, actually on the Penfield Board of Assessment Review, so for many years. I'm just here to offer the view of the appraiser and value. I've been told there's a lot of neighbors that are concerned that their home values are going to go down because of this, and for this use, for this location, I don't see that happening at all. I think there's seems like a big fear that she's going to turn this into a Holiday Inn or something, and there's going to be decks, patios, outdoor lighting. I mean, that's just not the case. So I'm going to try and not already talk about things we've already talked about, so try and skip over. But as been mentioned, she can't make any changes to the outside. I think she can put a sign, but she's not going to choose to put a sign. As Mr. Gordon mentioned, I was out there. It's just a small bedroom and no exterior access or anything like that. Oh, I do have some photos, by the way, if you guys don't have enough. As discussed, dead-end street, 2-acre lot. The house is set back 150 feet from the road. as Mr. Gordon's already talked about, set way back. I mean, just a very, very private site. The bedroom faces the back of the lot, totally buffered by woods, by ravine. As already discussed, there's a lot of other different types of uses in residential homes. You have in-law apartments, which have separate entries. You have different occupations. Mr. Gordon's got a place right in the street where he's an attorney out of. Dentist office, you could have 8-10 hours of cars coming in and out, and many of those are in residential type homes. This is nothing compared to that when considering traffic issues and all that. Just a quick thing about, I tried looking up question of property values near B&Bs. Didn't find a lot, and anything I did find has to be considered. Most B&Bs are on busy roads, village locations, or out in the middle of nowhere, out by a lake somewhere. I think the primary concern here is that this is on a residential lot. I think that's where the neighbors have a lot of concern. So what I did, couldn't find much with the B&Bs, I looked into group homes. A lot of times they try and put group homes right in neighborhoods, which is great. Put everybody together. I love it. I got a special needs daughter, so I'm all for that. There have been many studies on that. And just a couple quick things I wanted to read. It says, although there are many stated reasons why communities react unfavorably to human service facilities, the fear that a facility's presence will detract from the value of adjacent and nearby properties is perhaps the most commonly reported. I think that's what's going on here. As far as this use and this location, anything happening to values of neighboring homes, based on my 30 years of experience, don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I know you guys are going to talk and argue about the legalities of it happening. That's fine. Again, I'm just here for if property values are going to go down. I do not think so. From a total of 43 studies, 32 indicate that they found no significant impact on surrounding property values. These analyzed property sales before and after the opening of a facility. These studies suggest that the initial concerns of residents tended to dissipate once the facility had opened and the negative externalities had largely failed to appear. It seems clear from the studies that there's an overwhelming volume of evidence supporting the contention that human service facilities do not significantly impact the market values of properties around them. Again, you could say, well, we're not talking about group homes, we're talking about a potential B&B, but in my opinion, we're still talking about traffic, noise, and all that, and you're certainly going to have a lot more traffic and noise and lighting and all that from group homes than the applicant here who just wants to, from what I understand, turn this one bedroom and rent that out. So that's my opinion from an appraiser point of view. That's all I got.
You cited a few moments ago, most B&Bs are out, busy streets or out in the middle of nowhere. I think you said another place as well, I can't remember.
Right, but country, villages.
All right, so let me ask you, why do you think that is?
Why do I think that is? Well, as far as out in the middle of nowhere, you've got them a lot in lake areas, around recreational areas. Villages, people come into villages, there's not a lot of big hotels around there, perfect place to stay. Main roads, sure, they're gonna be on main roads where people can see them as they're going by. Yep, that's typically where they're located.
Okay, so let me ask the same question a different way. Why do you think we don't see more B&Bs in traditional residential neighborhoods?
Demand, people aren't gonna see them. They're not gonna, I don't know, yeah, as far as advertising or getting customers, I think that's gonna be difficult for. Sure, unless she just gets it through word of mouth and all that, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, are you done with your presentation? Because that was, I think, a pretty strong hint about a break, so maybe we'll take a, you're done for now. Okay, we're gonna take a,
Why don't you get up?
There is one more neighbor who will talk,
well,
but we can do that.
but that's not, that's, when I open it up to anybody, we take them pro and con, so,
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I mean, we get a lot of, when we have neighbor opposition,
By the way, thank you for your comments. I'm
We
sorry.
usually hear routinely that there's a fear that property values are gonna
Right.
decline, and we always ask that question, what's the basis? I just thought it's kind of interesting that the applicant chose to bring somebody up to actually address that issue, because, valuation is basically a
No, but-
professional.
In one instance, not all that long ago, that we had that issue, is just further down the road, further north, with the home for the veterans.
Right, yep.
Right.
There was also one on Creek Street, which is in my vague recollection, there's a group home on Creek Street.
What we're talking
That
about.
may be the one that switched over to veterans, transitional
Yeah, it
veterans.
was.
Peacefully operating, I go by it on my bicycle all the time.
Okay, all right, we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
5 minutes, all right.
Yeah, kill your mom.
Yeah, what?
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Those are baking apples anyway.
Okay, so now I will ask anyone in the audience that cares to speak about the application to come on up and do so.
Good evening. My name is Jeannie Colombo. I'm the attorney that represents 11 of the neighbors here tonight. We did provide to Mr. Morehouse, and I believe he provided to you our discussion of this matter, so you'd have a better understanding of what is going on this property. For the fun of it, though, the nice thing about these phones is you can go online, even at a meeting, and know that, her site is up. She does have the quieter place up tonight. November 13th schedule, 2013 schedule is up. It's 3 times a week, morning and evening sessions. So the woman is standing before you but not being honest, and I do not know this woman, but she's been saying a lot of things that are very contradictory. And that's what one of the concerns of the neighbors are. She's been conducting both a bed and breakfast and a meditation center, both with potentially commercial aspects, and she's been doing it for, over a year, maybe 2 years, without asking this board for anything. So now they've come because they've gotten kind of caught, and they come to try and fix it, but then even as they speak to you, they tell you different things. But the November meditation schedule is up online, and it's 3 times a week, morning and night. And then she says she's not doing this, she's not doing that. But in the site for the quieter place, it said services, Reiki, meditation classes, meditation sessions, and more. So she's not being truly honest with you as to what she's doing and not doing. The pictures we gave to the board were not to show that there's a lift line and that that's an issue. What we were trying to show to the board with our pictures is that there's a lot of service vehicles that have to go down that street, from refuse, buses, whatever. One of the pictures was of the town itself, all over the street also, and it's a single lane road. And one of the pictures also very clearly shows that there's 4 cars that were her cars for her people that were coming for meditation. So they're using the cul-de-sac. Is she using her yard? She said she could use her driveway, but the truth is it's a single driveway in, so she can't park the cars there. They can't do that. You can't invite strangers to your home and then try to work out how you're going to work them in the driveway, because people don't like to park back one behind each other when they don't know each other. So then they're going to go to the street, because that's what people like to do, because they always want to be able to escape. That's how Americans are with their chariots. They want to be able to get out. So it's complicated. They came before you just pretending they had the bed and breakfast. We were the ones that said what they have is a multi-use in this. They have 3 things going on. They have a single family, actually have 4. She has a single family home. We believe it's a 2-bedroom. She has a daughter living there who's an adult with her boyfriend who's living in the basement. Is somebody paying rent? There's your in-law issue. You have the meditation center and a potential bed and breakfast. And this is a very exclusive neighborhood. These people are very well appointed. They've worked their whole lives to buy these gorgeous, expensive homes and not to have a commercial enterprise at the end of their street. That's not acceptable. The street wasn't built properly. It's 1 lane. You can't get traffic going both ways at the same time on that street. So now you're putting a commercial enterprise at the end of it, basically, and people are coming and going that are not familiar with the street. You've got professional vehicles coming down, and you've got the neighbors trying to get home after a hard day's work, and they have to pull off for each other to be able to do it. It's not a normal street. It's not 2 lanes. Their attorney maintains that he has a house there and he has a law business there, but he's on the corner. He's on a 2-lane highway, so he has the proper access for what he's doing. They would not, well, you can do it as you wish, but most towns would not allow that to happen at the end of a 1-lane cul-de-sac. It will affect the values of these individuals. It just will. And the other problem is that they're not meeting any of the standards as set forth in your own code. And that's why we're here. I mean, even we'll back it up and go the other way. With the breakfast, under your own code, you know, breakfast shall not be offered to the public, but only to such transient guests. It does not allow them to go and start cooking in these homes, because there's you know, your fire safety hazards, there's health issues. That's why we have a health department and a fire marshal. So she's already telling you that she's letting these people cook in her kitchen. It's very dangerous. I mean, one of the reasons you should deny her is probably for her own benefit. I mean, she told you, well, they're talking about Jason's room, which is really her daughter's room. So the daughter, because the fire marshal came in and said, you cannot have this in the basement, they don't want to spend the money, they don't want to put the sprinkler system in down the stairwell, and they don't want to create an egress out of that basement. She doesn't want to spend the money. That's her business. But then the reality is what she's done is she's saying, okay, we'll come upstairs, and we'll pretend that's where they're going to stay, and maybe the person will, maybe they won't. Now it's a one bedroom, but maybe we'll put the spouse under the bed. You know, whatever, but, you know, she's only asking for $50 a night because she's undercutting. So who is she attracting into this neighborhood at $50 a night? When I went online, everybody else in the Airbnb except her was at $140 in Webster. The only $50 one was in your town of Penfield. So that's what she's trying to do. So what kind of transients is she bringing in? She's bringing in people that don't have the money. And that's scary because now you don't know who these people are. You don't, for her own safety, she's allowing strangers into her home that could do evil to her and could do evil to the neighbors. Some of these neighbors have children. Now they have to worry about transients that want to sleep overnight at $50 a night. I mean, you can't even do that at the Red Roof Inn anymore, or Motel 6 or 8 that's always having trouble. So now you're letting these people come into this home from Airbnb, which is all over the country, no control, and there's children on the street. And then maybe one will get picked up one night, and then where do we go with that? But backing it back down in terms of what they're doing in the house, the basement is illegal. She's admitted to you, again, that she's doing something absolutely illegal. The fire marshal of your town, his hair would be on the back of his head right now because it's illegal for her to have her daughter and her boyfriend sleeping in that basement. It's not allowed. So what she's done is she's putting her...
Excuse me,
under the building code.
I'm going to speak. Under the code, she was required to make some changes to the bedroom because of the change of occupancy to the bed and breakfast. But I believe Annie Sevegas made a determination that the required egress window that was down there will comply because it was there previous to the codes that required a lower level for the bed and breakfast. So she can have her daughter, her son live down there because it was a predated code that allowed that window to be where it is.
But what you're doing is you're flipping it to create the bed and breakfast. So what you're doing is a shell game. So you say that they may be appropriate. I bet you your fire marshal would disagree with you. Because what you're doing is saying...
The code will allow for her children or herself to sleep down there.
Okay, and where does it state in the code, and I don't want to argue with you, that a grown people can stay in the basement, and the boyfriend is not a family member. So how does he get to sleep in the basement?
I mean, whether the boyfriend is there or not, and how the family interacts with each other, I think they're still a family group, and it would be considered to be a single family dwelling with the family acting together as one group. It would be very much like a group home, and the status that a group home is given as a single-family residence.
Except that the fire marshal would not allow the group home people to live in the basement
Well,
without
and you know
fire
what,
code.
we're
But-
going
All right, we're
astray
going-
here.
But that's a building code question.
Right, and you know, again, we're going astray here. If there is an issue with the basement, Harold indicates that it isn't, it has been addressed, but I assure you, we will bring this to the attention of the fire marshal and make sure that we check on that. Again, we'll probably ask the applicant to have some offline conversations about that point, because obviously, nobody is interested in anybody living in an unsafe condition.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With respect to your Article 10.4, with respect to the bed and breakfast, as you know, the requirements are that that a conditional use is approved if it's in harmony with the general purpose of the district. We believe that the harmony does not exist here because it is a quiet residential street. With respect to the matter being detrimental to adjacent properties, again, we've addressed number one, a means of ingress and egress. It's one lane. The road does not take the traffic. B, adequacy of parking facilities. The only place she could have her people park for bed and breakfast and or meditation center is the cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac is not a normal cul-de-sac.
Gene, let me interrupt you. I'm glad you're hitting all these points, and if it's okay, I would like to take, as you make one, I'd like to stop and ask you some questions. Is that okay?
Certainly, sir.
Let's talk about parking. Let's say that this board imposed a condition upon this use that users of both the meditation and the B&B could only park in the driveway. Mike sort of mentioned that before. Wouldn't that be a reasonable condition that we could put on this, and wouldn't that address your concern about parking? And okay, we have blizzards, I understand that. But if we put a condition that said any user can only park in the driveway, and I know it's a pain in the neck, because we have cars in my driveway, because I have a lot of kids, and yeah, sometimes I have to go out and put my slippers on and go move a car. But you do it. So isn't that a way to address that issue?
It's a way, as long as they stay off the cul-de-sac.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. This board putting a condition that says no parking except in that driveway.
So then what do you do when the meditation center lets all their people out at 6 o'clock at night? And then they're all backing up into the cul-de-sac, right? Because now everyone's got a juxtaposition to get out, because now they're all in a row, and then they have to back up, and then they've got to go into the cul-de-sac, right? So you have all that confusion at the end of the driveway.
Well, but what you're saying is it's the nature of the cul-de-sac and the one-way street, which isn't going to change anytime soon, are unsafe for a lot of cars to be backing out of the driveway at any given time.
Yes, because the cul-de-sac is only half the size of a normal cul-de-sac. They're supposed to be
No, I understand, and I see that's in your papers, and I suppose you're also saying that the fact that there are commercial operations there would increase the number of times that scenario may happen. Because I could also envision a lot of cars being in a driveway on the holidays, and people coming out on a holiday, New Year's Eve, let's say, after having a glass or two of champagne, and having to back out of that driveway as well. Those are less frequent, and they don't involve a commercial operation. But I just, again, I want to make sure I'm understanding your point and explore ways that the board may be able to address the concerns that you and your clients are expressing. And by the way, we may not agree on that. You may say there is no way to adequately address this concern because it's a small cul-de-sac or because it's a one-way lane. And I get that, but I want to make sure we have a good record here.
And the other reality is the asphalt driveway also is one lane too. It's a skinny, it was meant to be an extension, if you will, of the street, I'm sure, when it was built, to bring the family to the door of their garage. So it's not big enough for what they're trying to do with it.
And I'm sorry to keep peppering questions at you, but I'm sure you're used to it. So, is it possible that another way to address the parking problem is for this board to say, we're gonna grant you your B&B, but a condition is gonna be that you cannot have the meditation?
which.
Now, she may not agree to that, but this board may have the authority to be able to impose that.
Except then, how do you police this neighbor who?
Well, that's his job.
who-
How do we police anytime we grant a variance, a conditional use permit? That's the job of the code, and it's all of our job to, we all have a right to file a complaint if we think things aren't being followed the way that they're supposed to. And again, I have no idea whether she may say, no way, Dan, we're not agreeing to that.
Suppose we could require a turnaround be put in on the property.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, it's,
Yeah, but let's get into that cul-de-sac that you're talking about. I went down there and I went in that driveway. I don't remember, is it a one-way street to the right? Do you have to go to the right, or can you say get to her property going left on that cul-de-sac? I mean, I don't remember one-way signs.
This is not a one-way street.
Okay, well, that's what I'm talking about.
Can you
That
go
circle on the
counterclockwise?
end
But it's a
is
one-
not a one-way street,
No,
correct?
but it's a one lane,
It's a one lane, but it's not a one-way.
correct.
Okay,
But
so
they
your
have to
point is-
give, they have to give when they.
Right, so if somebody's coming from the left and somebody's coming from the right, this is what you're saying is the problem. Or if somebody parks on the street, no matter which way you try and go, you can't get past them. Am I correct? I mean,
Correct.
I'm
They're
just
not-
trying to understand what you're saying.
Right.
And I think I understand. It's a one-lane street, not a one-way street.
Correct.
Okay, fine. Oh, I got it.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
With respect to the compatibility in the area, we just don't believe it's compatible. And I think that Mr. Ferrara, when he was discussing the fact that, the bed and breakfast, I know they're allowed in Penfield, but there's really only one, and it's on a main road, is that the reason they don't exist in Penfield, nothing personal, but you're not on the water, and, there's no real reason to come to Penfield unless you're trying to get a cheap room, which is what she's trying to do. She's trying to create a cheap bed and breakfast to bring people into the area. But these homes were not meant to be, they're private use homes. They're very nice homes. The people that live there want to have their quietness. That's why they picked that street, because of the wood and the ravine. And they don't need increased traffic. They don't need the overflow with the cul-de-sac issues. They want privacy in their street, and with the issue of safety, which is also on number 3 of 10-4, is the safety with the transient strangers. She is bringing in people from everywhere.
Let's go back to the point about compatibility. I want to be clear. Are you making an argument that a B&B would never be compatible with any residential neighborhood?
No, I can't say that because I don't know that to be the case one way or the other. I can only deal with Harrogate, and it wasn't meant to have that kind of use. It was supposed to be this quiet little area in the woods. That's why they picked it. It's not on a 2-lane highway. It's nestled in. It's surrounded by ravine. It was never properly meant to do anything but be a residential, single-family home.
But I guess I'd ask you, the code as passed by the town board doesn't say B&Bs aren't going to be allowed in Harrogate.
Absolutely.
So really, the argument, your argument is more the physical nature of this street, between the narrow cul-de-sac, or the narrow road and the cul-de-sac, as opposed to any residential neighborhood on a cul-de-sac. Because let's say we had a wide enough street and we had a big enough cul-de-sac.
That's correct.
You're not saying that we shouldn't have a B&B under those circumstances?
No, I'm not.
Necessarily.
Because then, in looking at that fictitious street,
Right.
if it has proper ingress and egress, if it has proper parking, and then it depends on where it's located. If it, maybe that other street is on a busy street, or it's near a busy street, so its character has already been compromised in terms of its interior beauty. This street hasn't been compromised yet. And, while we're at it with respect to in terms of the value of the neighborhood, we too had an individual come and look at the property, and I would ask that, can you just, we add this to the record from Richard Pagano, who works for RE/MAX, and he went through that he believes that if it's allowed to operate, you're going to have potentially a 30% decrease in the value of the homes, all for the reasons that we were discussing. So I know Mr. Ferrara got discussing about group homes and all of that, and, you know, my office is on Dartmouth, and we have a group home, and it all works out really well, but it's a city street, it's wide, it's protected, and it's a different situation. I mean, Mr. Gordon was off talking about farmers and migrant workers, and, you know, those are all the old classic cases, but that has nothing to do with this issue at hand. And yes, you can build migrant homes on a farm. That's what the Court of Appeals was talking about. They weren't talking about Harrogate Drive. And we're not arguing the fact that the town has a code that allows it. We're saying it doesn't meet the standards. And you, as the zoning board, have the right to disapprove it if it doesn't meet the standards as set forth. And also, you have someone who has not come to you with clean hands. I mean, the maximum length a transient guest can stay is 1 week. She admits in her prior website that we gave to you that before she took it down is that she was letting them stay 16 days. She has in there that it was going to be $750 for a month stay. She had access to this code. She just has not bothered to honor it in any way because it's whatever the traffic can bear. And I can appreciate that she's a widow and she's trying to make ends meet. But there's other ways to do it. She could sell her home. She could move and have a commercial property because it seems like she's a talented meditation center woman, and she could buy a piece of property that allows for a lot of activity and to have a going concern. That's just how you choose to run your life. But these other individuals are minding their own business and taking care of their own lives, and they're not happy. But they're not happy in an antagonistic way. They're just trying to bring to the board and to their neighbor that this is not the proper place for this. Even with the meditation center, you know, you still have to look at that the business has to be incidental and secondary to the primary use of the building as a dwelling. That is the law of the land. And this isn't an incidental or secondary use, a meditation center. I mean, she's bringing in other transients, and she's bringing them in at different levels to make that a commercial property. So you have somebody sleeping over in a room, you've got the daughter in the basement, and now you use the living room as a studio meditation center. You're taking a single family dwelling that was never built on any of those levels, and you're overusing it. And the fact that they didn't come to you to tell you that they were doing this is another example of why this should be denied just outright. The neighbors don't want to police anyone. They want to take care of their own lives. They don't believe in policing other people. That's not why they moved into the neighborhood. They don't want to rat on their neighbor or put a camera up to catch her. That's not what they want to do. But she's been doing that right along. When you asked Mr. Gordon what's the purpose of the meditation center, he didn't answer you. He went on a very long litany about the Court of Appeals cases that really have nothing to do with this case. And I understand everyone can appeal, but you can come down on the 4 letters of your own code on both the home, the customary use of the meditation center, which is in the mix, even though they did not apply, and also in terms of the bed and breakfast. You can come down on all 4 squares, as we like to call it, and say that you don't meet the standards, you can't meet the standards because you didn't do it properly, and you can't do it properly, and you're not going to do it properly because she stood right here and told you that her site's down, and it's not, and she's still hustling for the meditation. You know, she's saying that she's only having 3 to 5 people at a time, it's part-time, it's this and that, it's not working, and as soon as you all make a determination, she's going to do something else. And she's not going to do it well or right because she doesn't have she chooses not to do it financially so that it would be correct. And even to the point, if you will, if she's willing to jeopardize your own child in the basement, then it goes to show you what length she will do to accommodate what she believes to be in her own personal interest, not the neighborhood, and not even herself. The last thing we do discuss is the transients, and she advertises on that Airbnb. We gave you that article just to show you how, if you get one wrong transient, how they can just trash the neighborhood. And there are people in this neighborhood that, again, have children. This is not a joke that they're opening up this street so that those children are in jeopardy. And yes, a lawyer can have a business in a neighborhood and a church can, but it has to be under very specific guidelines. Even as an attorney, I can't just open up a business on my private street, which is also one lane in the woods, just a different town. They would come and say, no, you can't do that. My advantage is at least I have a 2-lane driveway, but they don't. And their attorney, he's on the corner, so he has a private business in his house, but he's on the main road to be able to do that.
Are you saying that a law office in this house wouldn't be appropriate either?
I can't tell you that because I don't know what that means, but the truth is, in the neighborhood, caught up in the end, there is a possibility that an attorney should not be allowed to use it.
Okay, and again, it seems to me that what you're moving toward, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I want to make sure I understand your argument. You're moving toward the physical
constraints,
properties of that cul-de-sac.
In constraints.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, hold on, any other questions from the board?
No.
No? Wow, okay. Anybody else in the audience care to speak about this? Come on up, sir. Please give us your name and address.
My name is Jim Siles. My spouse and I live at 477 Harrogate Drive. We are the immediate neighbors next door to Nina Livingstone, looking south. I do have a few additional handouts, and I promise I'm going to keep it short because a lot has already been covered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think at this point, what I'd like to do is start it from the security and safety perspective of the neighbors. That's one of the major concerns that we have. The issue of the vetting process was brought up by Nina Livingstone and how supposedly she's able to do that through Airbnb. In the first couple of handouts that I've given you, which I took off the internet today, one is from Airbnb on its fact site, and it says Airbnb does not routinely perform background checks of its users. And the second one is from a well-known website called erenter.com that says Airbnb conducts no tenant screening or background checks on guests or hosts, nor does it offer any protection to landlords whose properties are subject to total strangers. So yes, maybe she is allowed to get a name, an address, and an email address, and a phone number. Big deal. Do we know if the person just got out of jail? Do we know if they've raped anybody or robbed anybody? We don't know anything about these people.
May I ask you, do you, and I don't know, but what do, if anything, what do B&Bs usually do for background checks?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I think coming back to try to address that issue, right now there is only, according to our research and talking with Harold Morehouse, one B&B that exists in the town of Penfield with a Fairport mailing address. It's on a busy commercial street, Penfield Road. It's a historic house. The only other one that we know about was Strawberry Castle, also a historic house, also on Penfield Road, a busy commercial street. So from our perspective, when we look at this, we say, look, we have a very quiet street, a beautiful street. You know, we bought at the end of the cul-de-sac because we didn't want all this traffic. We never would have bought if there was a commercial business next door to us. Why would we do that? Why would somebody buy at the end of a cul-de-sac? That's what they buy for. They want privacy. They want
Okay,
quiet.
So if I'm hearing you right, that the need for a background check may be more relevant in a residential B&B than a one out on the main street.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that I know that some people who don't live on Harrogate Drive have sent in emails to Harold, which maybe have been passed along to you, saying, no, we don't want this in our neighborhood either. And I think that we look at it from the perspective that if you grant a permit for a B&B at the end of a dead-end street in this quiet residential neighborhood, are you then opening Pandora's box in a sense to basically say, okay, if you're willing to grant it here, are you willing to grant it anywhere else in residential zone, same residential zone? Is that the character of the neighborhood that everybody is bought into? I don't think so. I don't think that that's why people buy in a residential zone. They think that if you want a B&B, you would go to a commercial zone, which is where these other places are. From our perspective, it's just common sense. The other thing that I'd like to address is absentee management of the facility. The third piece that I've given you is an affidavit from a Mr. Joseph Fallon, who is visiting us on August 16th. He lives in DeRuyter, New York, and wasn't able to come, so he sent in this affidavit that's been notarized as factual. Nina Livingstone came and met us in the cul-de-sac. I had been taking Joe on a tour of the street to look at the various architectural styles of the houses that are there. And at this time, she's basically said to us that two Russians had just been finished staying at her house for $50 a night, and she had someone who was just beginning to stay for 16 days, which of course is in violation of the Penfield Code. Now, what hasn't been said is that also, during the time that this person was here, she went to Colorado for a week. She went to Colorado for a week because she told us that her son had gotten married. She found out by going to his Facebook page and finding out that he was going to get married, and so she was going out to Colorado. So who's watching the hen house at this point? And is that something that the neighbor should really have to be concerned with, that the deeded owner is not there? Maybe her adult daughter is there, but she's gone most of the time too. She works apparently. So we may have a stranger in the house. We don't know who they are because no background checks do exist. From a security standpoint, that's a real concern, because our neighbor on the other side, Travis, who's sitting over here, he has 3 little children under the ages of 5 years old. And if I were he, I'd be darn concerned that who is this stranger there? Nina's not there, and he's at work. That's a real concern from a security standpoint. Okay, moving on. I had originally included information from the administrator of the New York Empire Bed and Breakfast Association, because until tonight I wasn't aware that suddenly the applicant was going to be giving breakfast, because one of the criteria for being in the Empire State Bed and Breakfast Association is that you do provide or offer breakfast. And the Clematis Inn, which is currently the only bed and breakfast in Penfield, does belong to this organization and does provide breakfast. We've talked about, Harold brought up before about the zoning code related to the bedroom in the basement. And I'm not going to belabor that issue, but I will say that we did contact Wayne Cacchetti, who's the fire marshal for the town of Penfield, asked him if it was acceptable and legal. He said no. We did go, and I provided you with a copy of the New York State Residential Fire Code, which does basically say that egress equal to what would have been required for the bed and breakfast, it had been left downstairs, is still required. Maybe there's a difference of opinion, I don't know. However, we present that from our perspective. I'd like to go back to the parking issue, which Joe has talked about and asked a lot of questions about. The parking issue is a real issue from our perspective. Recently we had a power line that came down on our street. Fire department had to come down, RG&E trucks had to come down. The fire truck alone had difficulty turning around the cul-de-sac because of its size. Now, one of the pictures that we provided you with showed 4 cars there. We've seen up to 8 cars there for the meditation center. It's an issue both from an emergency standpoint, if something happens, that they have to be able to turn around. If these cars are there, they can't. But even more important, when it comes to the winter time, which we're now entering, the only place that snow can be placed in the cul-de-sac is where those cars park. There's no other place that it can be put. They can't go on the other side because there's a hydrant and there's mailboxes. They can't put it in the center of the street because there won't be enough room to turn around because there's barely enough room for the emergency vehicles to turn around now. So the only place that they can put the snow when the snow plows come down is where these cars park in the cul-de-sac. So she says, oh yes, maybe I'll allow them to park in the driveway. Well, henceforth, previously to this, she's already said on her website, please don't park here. Well, they park there anyways. So how do you control that? That's a question that you asked. How do you control that? Is that something that we have to police? I don't want to police it, but I'm concerned for our safety, the safety of all our neighbors, if something happens. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about the property value situation. You have a copy of the report that Rich Pagano has provided to you. We asked him to look at all the houses on the street, not just our house, all the houses on the street. Rich Pagano is a long-established real estate broker with a good reputation for doing business in the town of Penfield. And he looked at all these different issues, and he said that based upon the increased traffic, the parking in the cul-de-sac, the privacy issue, the fact that it's going to be lost, and the safety issue with transient strangers in particular, that in his opinion, the values of the resident's home could decrease by as much as 30%. This is in direct contradiction to what the other gentleman has proposed. We have a lot of concerns. We don't feel that either of these businesses are appropriate. When she talks about doing something out of her house as a meditation center as though it's only being a onesie, twosie, but when you look at the website that still exists up there, which our attorney said, it shows weekly sessions. Weekly, not monthly, weekly. Questions?
Anybody from the board? No? Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience care to speak?
My name is Dennis Uri. I live at 477 Harrogate, and I think I have become an expert on R120, R115, and R112. And I have become an expert because I've been going up and down dead-end streets. I have been listening to the people on dead-end streets telling me how we shouldn't have on Harrogate a B&B, and they certainly don't want one on theirs. And basically, the first realtor told you where you'd find B&Bs. You find them out on main highways. You find them out on maybe old Indian trails. You find them at intersections because they have the houses that can be made into B&Bs. B&Bs usually require several bedrooms and a community room and a dining room and sometimes a swimming pool and a tennis court and all that stuff. But you have housing stock in these three areas that are not built to provide much of that because they usually are 3 bedrooms, maybe 4 bedrooms on sites that go down in scale. I even now know the square footages of the various areas. So I'm saying that B&Bs were never meant to be in these 3 areas, and perhaps the zoning would take a volunteer that would start a process that would say that the dead-end streets, and I'm now just talking about dead-end streets, because everyone I met on a dead-end street said, I live here because it's a dead-end street. And I found on these dead-end streets that I would be passing out folders, but also cars going by would wave to me, like I was coming down a driveway. dead-end streets are friendly places, and they might not know who I am, but they figure that since I'm walking down a driveway, maybe I semi-belong to the house I'm walking down. So my thought is that you or somebody who's in charge of zoning should consider the fact that the housing stock is not built for B&Bs, and the street is populated by people who got on them because they were quiet, dead-end streets. And in passing, and I would like to tell you how impressed I have been, having worked for the city of New York, having worked for Jersey City, and having cut my teeth in Providence, Rhode Island, on the quality of the men and lady, Harold and I can cheat on that one, Andy and Yvonne. They really, though I disagree with half of what they said, were very, very helpful, and I thank them.
Thank you for that. It's always nice to hear.
Good evening. It's a long night. My name is Chris Gross-Moynihan. My husband and I live at 481 Harrogate on the cul-de-sac. We have lived there a year less than Nina and the Livingstones have. We moved in a year after they moved in. And so I know the street very, very well. We know all the neighbors on the street. 5 years ago, we started neighborhood picnics, and we got quite close at those picnics and have gotten together many times since then. My concern is this. There are offices on our street. Mr. Mansour has his law office. Joe Gordon has his law office, and we've known about them for a long time. But they're very different. These lawyers make appointments for their clients to come. They park in their driveways. They know who they are. They leave after their appointments, and they're gone by the end of the evening. They're not coming in at 11 o'clock at night. They're not strangers to them. I think that there's a big difference between having a home office and letting total strangers come down our quiet, secluded street. I wrote you a 2-page letter. I'm not going to go through all those points because I'm assuming you can read, and it's late. You don't have to read it tonight. But there is a huge concern about security and safety and traffic. Those are our points, and they are, a bed and breakfast is not suited for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is John Mansour. I live at 489 Harrogate Drive, which is exactly midway between Creek Street and Miss Livingstone's home. I'm assuming that the members of this board go down the street and are familiar with the physical arrangement of it, and knowing that, I can kind of shortcut. First of all, let me say, as a 42-year resident of that street, me and my wife have absolutely no objection at all to Miss Livingstone having a little bed and breakfast type, so-called, of operation that she's applied for. Now, I've sat here and listened to the discussion as well as I could hear with my hearing aids. I guess I did all right. And I have to constantly remind myself, forgive me, that I'm not here as an advocate, even though all my instincts as a retired lawyer make me want to go that way. But I can state to you some objective facts that I think might clarify some of the hypotheses that have been put before you. About 2 years ago, I began a peculiar habit, one of those things that happens as you get older, and I don't sleep through the nights. And I got into a habit of getting up at an hour that most of you would think absurd, 1:30, 2, 2:30, something like that. And making a coffee and putting on a bathrobe or whatever, and taking a walk up and down my street. When the weather's very fair, I'd even take a little bike ride up and down the street. And I can tell you that in the 2 years that I have been doing this, we all know that when you're familiar with a location, you notice something out of place. In the 2 years that I have been doing that, I cannot remember ever once seeing a car parked in that cul-de-sac in the wee hours of the morning, right in front of Miss Livingstone's house. Not once. The only exception, and I could be wrong, I mean, I could have forgotten something a couple of years ago, but those are memorable things. The only exception was actually 4 or 6 weeks ago after this issue came up, and I took a walk, my little walk, and I noticed at the cul-de-sac there was a station wagon parked there, right at the head of at the end of the cul-de-sac. And I noticed that because it's unusual. And I was wondering whose car that was. And the next morning, I was watching, and one of these two gentlemen came out onto the cul-de-sac and drove that station wagon back into his garage. Now, why, I don't know, but that's the only time in my conscious memory I have physically observed a car at that cul-de-sac overnight. And I can say that I had plenty of observations. The second thing about the width of the street is that if two cars want to pass each other in opposite directions, yes, their tires have to go off a little bit on the lawn. When an RG&E repair truck is there, you know, it's sure, you have to drive on lawn. But it is exceedingly rare in the course of normal traffic that I have ever seen local traffic, meaning residents of the street, in ordinary passenger cars having to, having a problem passing each other. Sure, it happens, but just an insignificant quantity. And I'm telling you that not as a matter of hypothesis, as a matter of observation. I'm retired, I got a lot of time, I'm out looking up and down the street, doing things, so I'm seeing. The third thing I want to mention that comes up in the context of Mr. DeLaus brought it up was this business of compatibility. And what crossed my mind was this, and I'll just suggest this as a train of thought. Compatibility, of course, involves a standard of comparison. And your standard of comparison, to be valid, has to be contemporary. You can't use wishful thinking, what you'd like the street to be. You can't use what it was like when we first moved in 42 years ago. And then one asks himself, how incompatible would it be with that street for somebody who was staying overnight, 1 night, 2 nights, whatever, as a paying guest, so to speak, in that house? Well, currently the standard of comparison for traffic, both physical movement and noise on that street, would be 6 garbage trucks a week. There are 3 different companies. Each operates 2 trucks. So you have that. You have the UPS and FedEx trucks, which are regular up and down the street, including to my home. I'm sure that we could think of some other kinds of things. Oh, you have the lawn care operations. And I would say fairly most of the homes on that street have lawn care operations with the big trailer, with the 1 or 2 rigs on the trailer, and they park halfway in the street and halfway on the lawn. Now, if you use this in your compatibility inquiry as the standard of comparison, because that is the reality today in year 2013 on these suburban streets, a few cars a week at the most going up and down into Miss Livingstone's driveway wouldn't even be noticed. Hardly. Fit right into the landscape. But you do notice the FedEx, and you do notice the UPS, and you do notice the garbage trucks and all that business. So I would just suggest to you, humbly, that in your standard of comparison, be contemporary. The last thing I have to say is actually what Ms. Livingstone wants to do is one of the most wondrous things that can happen, and it's because of the internet. Nobody's going to go down that street to check out her B&B to see what it's like, or to inquire about how much she charges. They've sat at home, whether in Cincinnati or San Francisco, and they've watched a whole video of the interior of her house. They've even spoken with her if they want to see her in person. If they use the internet, they can Skype with her. So there are no unknowns, and they pay in advance. What am I saying? I'm saying the amount of traffic that would accompany what you'd think of as a historical B&B is non-existent. All this has been taken care of. They know what it's like. They know what she's like. She knows the same. And they come down and check in, like going to the Y, something like that. So that's what occurred to me. And those are the only thoughts I have. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Members of the board, my name is Joe Moynihan. I reside at 481 Harrogate. You heard from my wife previously. I submit to the board that I strongly recommend that a conditional use permit for bed and breakfast not be issued, and that if there is a compelling reason for conditional use or zoning variance for a meditation center, that, as Mr. DeLaus alluded to, that a condition to that permit be that all visitors for meditation purposes would park off of the cul-de-sac in Mrs. Livingstone's driveway. As a practical matter, what would happen is they'd be parking perpendicular to the driveway on the lawn, but if that permit was going to be issued for the purposes of a meditation center, I would strongly recommend that that be a proviso that be added on there. I'll attempt to be succinct here because I'm struck with the same thoughts tonight that I had when I first heard about this. What a flaky idea. Quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen of the board, it is completely incompatible with the nature of that street. At least, Mr. Morehouse, Mr. Gussemeyer, at least you two, and maybe all the members of the board, have physically driven down that street. Harrogate Drive's not unique off of Creek Street. Yes, there are other short length cul-de-sacs, but that particular type of neighborhood on this far western side of Penfield is completely different from, newer subdivisions on the far eastern side. I remember the late Mr. Livingstone telling me that one of the things that he and the petitioner liked about that house when he first bought it was its privacy and the location of it at the end of the cul-de-sac. I think Mr. Livingstone at that time was one of the prime contractors building the house that is immediately next door to there. It's doubtful, I think, that Bill would, find it quite as desirable now, the house that he did buy, if there were a semi-commercial activity going on. An interesting footnote to this thing about the traffic is that I've had occasion to observe nonstop on some days, many people coming down to the end of the street, turning around and going right back out onto Creek Street. It's a legal thoroughfare, as far as I know, a public street, so they're legally entitled to do it. Why they want to, I don't know. I've speculated maybe some people are looking for a shortcut over to White Village or a way to get onto Browncroft by bypassing the corner. But I have a suspicion, too, that maybe it could very well be prospective tenants coming to check it out. The possibility of, what does this bed and breakfast look like? What does the house look like? The amount of traffic is quite a bit higher now. Again, not with visitors to any of the residents on the street, and not any of the contractors or delivery companies, but just people that come to the end, turn around, and go straight back out. I would, I think it would be a situation that the board has been very indulgent, I've noticed, for some other people, so I'd like to remind everybody here something that we haven't forgotten about in our lifetimes. There was a certain mayor for the city of Rochester who had a goofy idea to put a fast ferry across Lake Ontario, even though there was a thruway and a QEW that everybody could drive if they wanted to get there, and the ferry wasn't going to go across the lake. It was going to follow the shoreline to go over Toronto, and there was no established requirement for that. There was no market for anyone to ride a fast ferry. This is, what I'm alluding to here is that, as others have pointed out, the commercial viability of a yeah, I'll go back to B&B just like everybody else did, yeah. The commercial viability of a B&B is to, there's a need in the marketplace. There is customers awaiting, you might say. When that's not going to happen, when you're not going to have customers lining up, when there is no market existing for that, you're going to have to modify your operations to make it viable. I would, everyone on this, we've heard some reference made to other neighbors on the street, and I think from my point of view, I could pretty much speak for them too, that this is not a question of like an intolerance factor. How in cases where one particular petitioner has everybody lined up against them because they don't like the guy or whatever. I think it would be a safe bet that whatever Mrs. Livingstone wants to do in the privacy of her own house is her business, and nobody else on the street cares, were it not for the fact of, additional traffic, commercial usage of the property when nobody else on the street is allowed to or would care to. To make that a viable thing commercially, I think that some kind of changes would have to happen in the petitioner's plan of business in the years to come, and that would be at odds very likely, I think, with what the board would have in mind if that conditional use permit was granted. But I would strongly suggest that we maintain the character of the street the way it was 30 years ago when I first moved in approximately 30 years ago, just like the petitioner. She was there, she and her husband moved in a couple of years before us. But I'd strongly recommend that the character of that street be allowed to stay as it is and as it has been. When one resident is, got an idea that, is he or she wants to do something, and 11 other residents on the street are, really not too wild about that. I don't see how that's a good idea, and that the petitioner would be a lot better off if he or she modified her plans. I think that would be a situation where, I would, as I say, I would certainly hope that the board would probably pass on that conditional use permit at this time.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
And you don't have to answer if you
Sure.
don't want to, but I'm sure you heard the comments by another neighbor, Mr. Mansour, just a few moments ago, talking about how over the years the traffic has changed there. Now we have delivery trucks frequently. We have the lawn care business. Do you agree with those comments?
Yes, I do. I have to agree with what Mr. Mansour's observation, because I made the same one. However, I would say that given that that is a reality of 21st century life, as Mr. Mansour articulated, that only a conditional use for a bread and B&B and the meditation center would only exacerbate that. If we had a situation where, okay, we're going to give the green light to both of those things, but we want to deal with the traffic issue, which is a serious one, then we're going to punt this away from the zoning board and we're going to send it over to highway and the building department because it's time to rebuild that road at some ungodly expense. It's time to widen that by 1.5 times its present width at least. Time to talk about curbs. Time to talk about storm sewage, which, and maybe street lights too. None of this is, germane to the Zoning Board of Appeals, but yeah, I would agree with what Mr. Mansour said. But again, any additional traffic just exacerbates the problem that we're dealing with now. It's bad enough with the increase of contractor traffic and deliveries, and it's just not viable on Harrogate. It's in my opinion. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Okay. Applicant want to come up again and address any of these? I think it's been pretty thorough, but I want to give you the chance. This is nothing that I want to rush through. Obviously, it's a very important issue.
Very briefly. Promise. It is possible that there may be stray things on the internet, and it is possible that, as noted earlier, that there may be some very old DBA filings at the county clerk's office. My client is working with counsel and is going to make everything, right. And I think that I do not, I think there's no question about the very limited prior volume or success of the mediation work. It's never paid the bills and it's never been viable, but it's something that's important to my client, and she does on a very limited basis with very limited impact on anything, including her budget. But the B&B has promise, and with the reverse mortgage in place now, it can tip the scales enough so that she can hold on, and I think she is completely amenable to, for example, none of her use involving for either the bed and breakfast, obviously with one room, and the and whatever limited meditation is going on, that they're, neither of those will go out on the cul-de-sac. I believe there have been family events like a recent marriage, which put a number of cars on the cul-de-sac, and there was no complaint about that. There are many frequent family gatherings that also put cars on the cul-de-sac. Mr. Mr. Moynihan's brother works on his house periodically, and both times that I went to my client's house to take photographs, I believe there was a car parked on the street, not on Mr. Moynihan's driveway. We don't have no parking signs on the street. Everybody on the street occasionally has folks parked on the street. It doesn't happen frequently, and my client is completely willing to keep all of whatever she's doing on her driveway. She does have the ability to have a turnaround in her, I think in our initial photographs, the exterior property photographs that are attached to her permit application, you will find not only a photograph looking down her curved, very long driveway, longest on the street, towards the house, but also a photograph at the base of that driveway where there is a very large area for parking at the base of the driveway in front of the house, which makes it possible for cars to turn around. But in any event, she's perfectly happy to keep the business on the property, which can handle it.
Let me ask you one more question that I thought. Do you think that it's fair to say that the relatively few number of customers that she's had over the last 2 years is an indication that a bed and breakfast does not belong there?
I don't think that, no, I don't, because in most of her customers have been, since she's been active on the bed and breakfast site, and in fact, out of all of the volume in the last, I have a list of actually all the people, but out of all the people who've been there, most of them have been there after August of 2013, on or after, which is when she's, been using the Airbnb, and so that's...
Okay, so that would be 10, I think you said 10 folks
10.
in the last 3 months?
I also had 3 people immediately following the cease and desist order that wanted to come that I had to say no to.
Okay.
And I did say yes to 2 offline, and they came for free because I wanted company, and they stayed in my house. But there were more than that, and it's because of the reviews of me as a person and how nice my house is that it was picking up, because the more reviews you get, the more people want to come. And
Yep.
so it was just starting. when I
Okay,
had
well,
to
that's,
stop it.
hearing that it's just starting, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you
I
very
got one
much.
question for you. Okay. One of my concerns before was security. Remember, and I asked you about that from this, and I don't know how to pronounce it,
Airbnb.
Airbnb, thank you,
Yeah.
appreciate it. Okay, from Airbnb, and you said you are going to increase your security, if I remember right, on how you do things through Airbnb?
Yes.
Okay, how would you, because again, I mean,
Well,
what
we
someone
did.
else presented was that Airbnb conducts no tenant screening or background checks on guests and hosts, nor
Okay.
does it offer any protection to landlords whose properties are subject to total strangers. Could you address that? That's from
Right, we understand.
Airbnb website,
Right,
supposedly,
we heard that.
okay? Can you just address your extra security that
What-
you were referring to
What,
before?
what basically is provided, people who are on that site can elect, as the petitioner has elected, to require positive identification, such as driver's licenses and telephone numbers and itineraries of the people and other things which are listed, enumerated in the letter of intent. That is not the same thing as a full background check, but it is meaningful and certainly exceeds what was available when the people used to call on the telephone and say, I'd like a room. When the ordinance was enacted, they didn't have any of those measures. You didn't know who was on the phone, and you knew practically nothing. So this gives you a whole lot more. She also gets the chance to talk to them, and she also gets a sense of.
So that's the enhanced security that you
Well,
were referring to. I mean,
Well,
you know,
it's-
just
for an
ask-
example, when the Russian couple was coming up and they wanted to stay at Niagara Falls, and they weren't calling me, and we were doing this email thing, and I said, I'm not going to say yes unless you call within 15 minutes, because I have to speak to you. You know, because I
Okay.
need to get a sense of the person on the other end of the phone.
Is this the same
This is-
Russian couple that someone was referring to that, you said two men, you're saying Russian couple, they were gonna get in
No,
trouble
no.
here.
No,
What
no,
was
there was one couple that went through and stayed and stayed 2 nights. And they went to Niagara Falls and they came back because they were so happy there. And we made friends and stuff, and then they went on with their journey. They were visiting
so
the
it was a
country as
couple,
part of
man
their
and
honeymoon.
woman.
A man and a woman,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Sorry, that's, they had just gotten married down in New Jersey by his uncle.
That's it, I better stop there.
Yeah, so anyway, they did that, and I'm just saying that I wasn't gonna say yes unless I heard from them, and she started panicking, because all she had was this Russian cell phone. So we ended up connecting, she found a public phone, or she borrowed a cell phone or something, and we spoke. And then it was like, oh, you're just an excited bride. I just didn't trust it, in part because she was Russian. It was like craziness, but I didn't feel safe. If I don't feel safe, this can't happen. This is my home. So I check. I check myself. I check to see, and we go back and forth with emails, and
One of the
Yeah,
other.
no, I understand, that's why I asked you, again, I think it was good that you were able to address the security situation that I had asked for before.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
thank you for your answer, that's
Thank
all.
you. There's also one other piece, because I did leave the house to go to Colorado,
Yep.
and I won't do that again. I definitely won't. But my daughter was there, who was very upset in the beginning with all this people staying at my house, and no men staying at my house. And then she met the man, and I asked her, are you okay with me going? And she said yes, and she was there with, her boyfriend, yes. So she felt safe with him. He was an RIT professor. He was working on his getting ready for school stuff and looking for apartments. There was no reason to not feel completely safe because he'd already been there a week when I went away for a few days. But I can honestly say I won't do that again, and besides, it's only going to be a week. It can't be the 16 days, and I get that.
Okay, thank you.
So, well, let me ask you about that. I'm sorry, I really am. When you say you won't do that again,
Yes.
could you be more specific about that?
I really
When you
underst-
have a customer,
Yes.
are you saying you're not going to leave the house? Tell me what you mean.
I will not go away on vacation, and if I'm going on vacation, I won't have people stay at my home, period. And I won't do it, and then no one will be able to stay for more than a week, which if I haven't changed it yet on my Airbnb, the Airbnb thing is so up in the air that the current room that I'm hoping to be a bed and breakfast isn't visible yet to anybody. It's just my old room in which I have said nothing's available, maybe by Thanksgiving. But I can't do anything now because it's in the zoning board world. So I've been very upfront and transparent about everything once I found out that I really had to do it this way. And I have been transparent throughout this.
Let me make a comment about that. Most of us have been on this board for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Harold's been around zoning for quite some time. Yvonne she's a relative newcomer. But it's not uncommon that we encounter situations where good people, have done something that violated the code. Yeah. And there are occasions where people have done things that violated the code, and they knew they were violating the code.
Right.
And we know that they knew.
Yeah.
But I can, speaking for myself in any event, I haven't seen or heard anything in the written documentation or the testimony tonight that would lead me to believe that, that would lead me to call into question your character or your integrity at all. And I wanted to say that because you just made the point about you've been transparent, and I think we're all human beings here, we're all citizens of the town, and this is a tough issue. Let's not kid ourselves. But I just wanted you to know that I personally haven't seen anything along those lines. Now,
Thank you.
hopefully, you've learned, you've retained a good attorney to represent you, so maybe check before you act. We could all use
yeah,
that.
I get that piece, thank you.
Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to say is on this issue of the home occupation. As I started earlier,
Yeah,
feels like about 8 hours ago. But one of the first things we said was that the issues related to that are gonna come up in the context of our review of the B&B request. So I'll just reiterate that the application, there is no formal application in front of us for permission to conduct that business.
correct.
In fact, and everybody should be aware of this, the code allows operation of the home occupation without any permission. Don't even have to come to Harold to get permission. As long as you're abiding by the rules as are in the zoning code, then you're okay. Now, that begs the question, have we heard anything today or in the papers that might lead to us to question whether you're abiding by the rules? I think we're probably gonna think about that for a little while. And if we think that we need further information from you in that regard, either formally or informally, I would hope that you would cooperate with that request for information.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
I would also like to just mention that anyone's welcome to go on the website and see that there are 2 classes a week, which nobody has been attending. Things look bigger on that website. They always have, and it's my
Right.
hope that things will happen. And I've been doing this for so long, from Healing with Awareness to A Quieter Place, that I do it from the heart. And I don't, I can easily limit the size of classes. If 12 is too much, I can make it less. But I really can't see that that's going to be an issue, And it's always going to be part-time. I have no intention to do this more than 1 or 2 workshops a month and having these, this one thing a month.
I guess what I would say in that regard, that's great to hear, and I guess you've been here all night, so you've heard the concerns expressed, is take it upon yourself to make sure that things are clear to your neighbors and to other residents and to the folks at the town hall. Okay? Carol, I think, had a question.
Yeah, I have a question. Do you have an outside job?
No,
Okay, I guess what I wonder in myself, my own personal question,
yeah.
it seems like you're doing this, to make money, you reverse mortgage, et cetera. I'm just concerned, I know you did have an outside job, and I'm wondering why it said it in your thing that you used to be a professor or something somewhere?
No, I've taught meditation around
Taught-
town in different places.
Okay, so I guess my question
But that
is-
was always like one night a week for 5 weeks, or, I have never really, and as an adult woman, I have not worked in a regular way outside of the home.
Okay, then my question is, since this is becoming very popular now, we see advertisements and so forth about Medicaid. So I'm just wondering then why, since it seems like you're doing this for the money to, to survive, why you wouldn't do something outside of the home which would make it easier on you where you live?
Well, this is my heart. My whole entire adult life has been spent preparing myself
But couldn't you do
for
this
being able to
outside?
offer this. I understand, and I'm trying to work things out. I may have a part-time job in the spring. I don't know. It's a hard time to get a job. I'm almost 65 years old. This is the reality of the world as well. And, I have a bachelor's degree in something that everyone else has a lot more experience with. So I'm trying to live with my reality the best that I can and do things, up on the up and up, and see what happens. I mean, I want to have more people coming to introductions to meditation. But as I said, I'm happy to limit it. If 12 is too much, I'll make it 10. I mean, it's just a simple, I'm still in the process of exploration. My husband's been, it's 2.5 years, and I'm still figuring things out. I was fortunate enough to have enough insurance to live this way so far, knowing that it's not going to be enough if I'm going to live to 80 or more. I definitely don't have enough. So I'm trying to do what I can while I can do it. And it's very honest for me to say that, but I'm paying attention to what my heart and my whole life has trained me for, and to see if it's going to happen as fully as I can, and have company in my house every once in a while with this Airbnb, because I've loved every person who's come in. They have, I looked around on the Airbnb site for other Penfield pricing, and everyone was between 30 and 50 bucks. So I don't know where 150 is, but what I saw when I started my website on Airbnb, it was between 30 and 50 bucks a night. That's what it was. 50 was the higher end. It's because we're not in the city. I have a friend in the city who's getting 75 bucks a night. I don't have that. What I have is a beautiful country setting, and people have to travel there. They have to come from the airport, and they have to really want to come to my place because it's quiet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, I'll ask one last time. Anybody else in the audience? Okay, thank you all very much. Again, I started off by saying how we notify people so that they'll come in and speak their minds, and it was a long night, but well worth it, a very important application to everybody, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity to hear from you. Thank you very much.